Chapter 1. Chapter text. Zashi is going to kill me. Sounds dramatic? Well, try being in Aizawa Shuda's shoes at that moment. It has only been 2 years since he graduated from UA and started his career as an underground hero. Well, he has already survived his first year, which already puts him ahead of 40% of the underground heroes. Statistically speaking, 65% of underground heroes leave the scene before their second year. 40% die during their first year of service. 15% suffer career-ending injuries before their second year. And 10% of them decide the danger is not worth it and retire. The numbers are frightening, but the 35% who survive the first 2 years rarely retire for any reason other than old age. This is because these people are usually the ones who are well prepared to deal with the dangers of the job and have the determination to keep going even despite the risks. Shoyuta is one of those. Every time he leaves his home, he promises his husband he'll go back alive to him. He always promises to be careful, and he usually is. So how is Shoyuta supposed to explain the bone poking out of his leg to his husband? How is he supposed to explain that this isn't the result of a fight but of his tripping and landing badly while he was doing parkour? So, sorry if he sounds dramatic, but he's not lying. Zashi is totally going to kill him. Which is why Shoyuta is sitting there on the fire stairs of a building at 3 a.m., trying to gather the courage to call his husband and ask for a lift home. Zashi is going to kill me, he mutters aloud as he pokes the bone on his leg. It hurts like hell, but he had worse before. Well, you should probably stop poking it. A high-pitched voice calls from behind him. An infection will only make everything worse. Looking behind him, he sees a toddler looking at him from the open window of the building. Kid, it's 3 a.m. Why the foo? Why are you awake? Shoyuta asks. As surprising as it sounds, you are not the first hero to appear bleeding outside my window. The kid replies with a shrug as he climbs out into the fire stairs with a small first aid kit in hand. I know every underground hero who patrols this area. It's nice to meet you, Eraserhead. That doesn't answer my question, kid. Shoyuta replies. Shouldn't you be asleep? The kid shrugs again and extends his right arm, showing Shoyuta the back of his hand. Salazar, the kid says, and Shoyuta looks around. But there's no one else here. Good. Mending a broken leg is easy, but I'll need to set it back in place first. Shoyuta is about to reply but gasps when the kid sets a hand on the hem of his pants and carefully looks at his wounded leg. I'll need to cut it, okay? Shoyuta nods, and the kid grabs a pair of scissors from the first aid kit and makes quick work of cutting a hole in the hem of his pants. The boy doesn't even blink at the gruesome sight of an open fracture. He deftly places his hands on Shuda's leg, and with one precise movement, he puts the bone back in place. Shoyuta has to hold back a scream of pain, but the kid sends him a smile, half apologetic, half reassuring. It's surprising how good the boy is at this. With the bone back in place, the kid sets his right hand over the wound, and Shoyuta sees something moving along the arm and settling on the kid's hand. But he can't see what it is because of the lack of light. The kid puts all 5 fingers on Shuda's leg, not quite touching the wound, but very close to it, and a green glow emanates, illuminating the kid's face for the first time and letting Shoyuta have a good look at him. In the light, he can see that the curly hair he first assumed was black is actually green, as well as the kid's round eyes. A face rounded by baby fat. Under each eye, he has a set of freckles forming a diamond pattern. Looking back at his leg, Shoyuta notices the wound rapidly closing up. The boy maintains a focused expression, slightly sticking his tongue out his mouth. The wound takes about 15 seconds to close completely, but the kid keeps the hand on his leg for a few more seconds. Then the kid's hand stops glowing, and he pulls it back. All set, the kid says. Do you feel any pain? Shoyuta moves his leg a bit but doesn't feel any pain. Then he gets up, testing it. To his surprise, there's no pain and not even a scar on the place where the wound was. The only remaining evidence of the wound is the cut on his blood-stained pants. Shuda's relief is palpable. A cut on the hem of his pants is much easier to explain than an open fracture. Thank you, kid, Shoyuta says. You're my hero. The kid beams at him and reaches for his first aid box, pulling out a cereal bar and giving it to Shoyuta. I didn't take any of your energy, but this should help anyway. The kid says, "Take care, Eraserhead." I say the same, kid. Shoyuta replies, "Go to sleep. It's late." "Okay, bye, Eraserhead." The kid replies and climbs back through his window. As Shoyuta leaves, he glances once more at the building and sees the kid at the window waving at him, and despite himself, he waves back before jumping away. As he goes back home, Shoyuta thinks back to the kid. He has a pretty powerful healing quirk, that's for sure. But apparently, the HPSC doesn't know about him yet. Shoyuta didn't ask his name, but that's for the better. Healers are rare, and to be able to heal a broken bone like that, practically unheard of. The only other known person with a powerful healing quirk is Recovery Girl, and her quirk uses the person's stamina to heal. Shoyuta feels no more tired than he already was when the kid healed him. He's not sure what is the kid's limit, but one thing he knows. In the future, this kid might become the most searched healer in Japan, if not the world. If Shoyuta can do anything to protect him for now, he'll do it in a heartbeat. So it's probably best if he keeps an eye on the kid from afar. He knows where he lives. It shouldn't be a hard thing to do. Izuku lies on his bed with a smile on his face as he thinks about the hero's words. "Thank you, kid. You're my hero." Midoriya Izuku has always loved heroes, but that doesn't mean he wanted to be one, at least not in the usual sense of the word. It's normal to want to be like the people you admire, but while Izuku admired heroes, there was one person he always admired even more: his mom. Midoriya Inko, one of the best, if not the best surgeon Japan has ever known. With a success rate of over 99% in her surgeries, only once in her life has she lost a patient. Since he was little, yes, he knows he's only 5. Inko has been Izuku's hero, and he wants to be just like her. A hero for the heroes. Izuku. A knock on his door. 3 a.m., you know the drill. Izuku smiles and calls back. "Okay, Mom, I'll go to sleep now," he replies and lies down on his bed. Izuku knows he's not the easiest kid. He used to stay awake the whole night observing his window and stepping out to heal any hurt hero he saw. But after a while, his mom caught him. Izuku didn't want to stop, so she made a compromise. He can only stay awake until 3 a.m., and only as long as he keeps his grades. Since he's homeschooled, that's not hard to do. He doesn't need to wake up early to go to school, so he can study at his own pace. "You did well." He hears a voice in his ear and smiles. He raises his right arm and looks at the back of his right hand. He feels like something is slithering through his body until something that looks like a snake tattoo climbs through his arm, setting his head on the back of his hand. "Thank you, Salazar." Izuku replies. "It was hard, though. That's the first time I set an open fracture." The snake opens his red eyes, looking straight at Izuku's. "I still think you shouldn't be healing anyone like this," Salazar says. "There's a reason your mom didn't register your quirk yet, despite you having it for more than a year." "It's okay," Izuku replies. "And she said she'll have to register it next year anyway. We can't hide my quirk forever. But we can protect you for as long as possible," Salazar says. "God knows you won't do it yourself." Izuku giggles and lowers his arm. Salazar worries too much. He'll be fine. It's funny how genetics work. Izuku always expected he would have some kind of telekinesis or fire quirk. Maybe even both if he was lucky. Imagine his surprise when on his 4th birthday he started hearing a voice in his head. Then next, a snake tattoo appeared on his right arm. And the tattoo could move too. That day was a shock, but his mom helped Izuku to understand his quirk. Snake of Asclepius. That's what Izuku wants to call his quirk when he finally registers it. The snake tattoo on his arm is sentient and can move through his arm. Izuku called him Salazar after a character from one of his mom's books, something with wizards. He quickly learned that Salazar could see and heal wounds. But he's only half of Izuku's quirk. The other half, Izuku is sure it came straight from his mom. Inko can pull small objects toward her. She uses this skill masterfully during her surgeries. Izuku can also pull things. When he touches someone with his left hand, he can pull energy from them. The energy goes straight to Salazar, and the more energy he has, the more vivid Salazar becomes. As long as Izuku sets his right hand on someone, Salazar can heal this person's wounds. He can also heal Izuku's own wounds. though Izuku doesn't have any say on that front. Salazar absolutely hates seeing Izuku hurt, so even a paper cut is quickly healed by the snake Quirk. Izuku often compares him to an overprotective older brother, but Salazar never seems to mind. Despite not liking how much Izuku is exposing himself, Salazar never refuses to help Izuku heal heroes, as long as they aren't rude to Izuku. The Quirk is also extremely petty, and can hold a grudge like no one Izuku ever knew except maybe Kaken. The only hero who was ever rude to Izuku was someone called Cobra. After that, Salazar absolutely refused to ever heal him until the day he appeared in front of his window, bleeding profoundly from a stab. Even so, Salazar only agreed to heal him when the hero bowed to Izuku and begged for his forgiveness. After that, the hero was never rude to Izuku again. But Salazar still refuses to heal him unless it's an emergency. And by emergency, he means he's going to die if he's not healed right now. If he can get to a hospital alive, no dice. Most of the time, the problem is the opposite. Most heroes feel like they are taking advantage of Izuku by using his quirk to heal. Izuku can understand why. Healers are rare, and most of them are either part of big hero agencies or directly under the HPSC. But regardless, the only way to have access to one is usually by paying them. And healers, especially the ones who know their value, are expensive. Izuku never asked for anything in exchange for his healing. He thinks the heroes are already doing enough for him. After all, by doing that, they let Izuku train his quirk. But most of them insist on bringing gifts whenever they see Izuku, even when they aren't there to be healed. Izuku is actually pretty happy with how cooperative Eraserhead was just now. Most of the time, he would need at least 20 minutes just to convince a new hero to let him heal them. Maybe he finally found a hero that won't give him a headache and try to hide wounds. That would be great. Despite his excitement, it doesn't take long for Izuku to fall asleep. And the next day, he finds a present Mike plush in front of his window, along with a note. "Thanks again, kid." Grinning, Izuku puts the plush on his bed with his All Might, Gang Orca, Endeavor, and Best Genus plushes. Chapter 2. Izuku was returning home with his mom with the week's groceries. Around his neck, he felt the comfortable weight of Salazar in his favorite place as he walked hand in hand with his mom. That's always his favorite time since he rarely gets to leave home. He knows that his mother is only trying to protect him, but it is still annoying to be stuck indoors all the time. Izuku has always been an active child. It doesn't take more than a few seconds without something to do for him to feel restless. His quirk manifested while he was at home, and immediately his mom took him out of daycare until he learned to control his quirk. Izuku doesn't understand very well why it's necessary, but he trusts his mom, and Salazar too. Speaking of the snake, Izuku feels Salazar moving back to his right hand and looks down. "Salazar," Izuku calls, but the snake isn't paying attention. Suddenly, the tattoo jumps off his arm, taking the form of a green and black snake with black eyes. Izuku searched it before and found out that Salazar is very similar in appearance to a boomslang snake. The difference being that Salazar isn't venomous. Salazar slithers to a dark alley, and Izuku runs after him. "Izuku!" his mom calls as she follows him. "Salazar found something," Izuku says without slowing down. Once he enters the alley, it takes a few seconds for his eyes to get used to the darkness. But once they are, Izuku finds Salazar looking intently at a man sitting on the floor and breathing heavily. Not far from him are 5 other guys tied on the floor and groaning from pain. Izuku narrows his eyes at the scene but quickly recognizes the man. It's the hero he healed a few weeks ago, the one that gave him the present Mike plush. "Eraserhead," Izuku calls excitedly. The man looks at him with wide eyes. Then his eyes widen even more when he recognizes Izuku, and even more once he sees his mom. "Eraserhead," she greets him. "I see you're staying safe as always." "Inko," Eraserhead greets back. "I didn't know you had a son." "Yeah, I don't exactly talk much about my family," she replies. "This is Izuku, but it seems like you already know each other." "I healed his leg," Izuku says, grinning, "and he gave me a Mike plush." Then he turns back to the hero and bows. "Thank you for the gift. I loved it." "No problem, kid." Eraserhead moves to get up, then winces in pain. You're hurt again, Izuku says. I can heal you. It's okay, kid. Eraserhead replies. This is nothing. It's not nothing, Salazar says, climbing through Izuku's leg and curling around his neck. He has 3 bruised ribs. One is cracked. You have a cracked rib and bruised? Izuku gasps. How is that nothing? I just need to rest and I'll be good as new kid. Eraserhead reassures him. That's not how it works. Izuku replies indignantly. At least tell me you were going to the hospital. No, he wasn't, his mom says. He only goes to the hospital if one of his friends forces him. This is nothing. Eraserhead tries to get up again. Nope, I'm healing you right now, Izuku replies. Sit down. Kid, that's illegal quirk usage. Eraserhead argues. Not if mom gives me permission, Izuku replies, looking at her. People with healing quirks can use them without a license as long as there's a health professional supervising. Still, Eraserhead keeps arguing. You don't have to dash. I'm doing it one way or the other. If you won't collaborate. Izuku puts his left hand on the hero's face. Nap time, idiot. Izuku feels the energy leaving the man's body, and a few seconds later, he passes out. Salazar slithers back to his right hand, and Izuku feels him turning back into a tattoo. So much for finding a sensible hero, Salazar mutters as Izuku moves to heal the man. Why are heroes so stubborn? Izuku grumbles as he puts his hand over Eraserhead's chest. 10 seconds later, there's not a trace of the wound left. Mom, did you bring my notebook? His mom pulls a pen and notebook from her pouch and gives him. Thank you, Mom. Izuku quickly scribes a note, then tears the page and drops it on Eraserhead's lap. When Eraserhead wakes up, he can hear the police sirens approaching. The criminals he fought are still tied. It looks like he just passed out for a few seconds. Inko and her kid are already long gone. Getting up, he notices the pain in his chest is completely gone. Actually, it has been a long time since he has breathed that well. He has no doubt all his bruises are gone. The next thing he notices is a small note folded on his lap. The note clearly written by a child. Eraserhead, I hope you're feeling better. Sorry for putting you to sleep, but you were being stupid. You know where I live. If you need healing, come to me. Don't be a stranger. Mom trusts you, and Salazar likes you. Izuku. Yeah, that's not going to happen. He just needs to be more careful so he doesn't bumps on the kid while hurt. It doesn't work. For the next year, somehow the kid manages to find him hurt 26 more times. And every single time, Shoyuta passes out and wakes a few minutes later with his wounds gone and an angry note from the kid. Izuku has never been so excited. His 6th birthday was a week ago, and yesterday they finally registered his quirk. This means that he can finally enroll in elementary school with Kaken. He's very excited, but that's unfortunately not today. Today he has to wear a very uncomfortable suit and go with his mother to meet someone. She said that they were going to talk directly to the president of the Hero Public Safety Commission. Izuku doesn't understand why they are going to talk to someone so important, but he knows that he needs to be on his best behavior. Izuku knows that he will have to introduce Salazar as well, and this is the part he is most nervous about. Salazar is many things, respectful is not one of them. Izuku had to promise to take him hunting in the rat-filled alley near their house to make Salazar promise to behave. Which brings them to this meeting room where the tall woman in a suit is talking to his mom. But what Izuku is really focused on is the kid. A few years older than him, blonde, sharp eyes, long red wings at her side. The kid didn't say a single word since they got there, just smiled politely, but Salazar had been looking intently at him for many minutes already. Salazar, Izuku calls softly. This boy is hurt, Salazar says. He has bruises all over his body, and one rib is cracked. Izuku gasps louder than he intended and clasps his hands over his mouth to cover it. But he already got everyone's attention. Something happened, sweetie? His mom asks. Salazar said he's hurt. Izuku replies. He has a cracked rib and a lot of bruises. The president's eyes widen for a second as she looks from Izuku to Salazar a few times. then turns to the kid. Hawks! Hawks? There's no way this is the kid's name. Are you hiding wounds again? You know you should see the nurse after every training session. Even for a 6-year-old, what she's saying is clearly a lie. Go to the nurse. I can heal him, Izuku blurts before he could stop himself. The president looks at him in thought for a few seconds. Then she nods. Well, I guess a demonstration of your quirk would be useful for us, she says. Very well, go on. Izuku nods and takes a tentative step toward the other boy. The boy's feathers ruffle in panic, but he keeps still. It's clear that he's not here by his own will. He also has a lot of scars, Salazar says. I don't like this. Izuku agrees, but he can't do anything at the moment. He hopes one day he can. For now, he places his right hand over the boy's chest, and Salazar slithers through his arm, resting his head on the back of his hand. Then his palm lights like it always do when he uses his quirk. The boy is literally covered in bruises, and he has much more scars than even some pro heroes, let alone a kid not that much older than Izuku himself. Frowning, Izuku heals the bruises but leaves the scars. He has a feeling that they'll be important one day to prove what the boy went through. That's incredible, the president mutters and looks at the kid. Hawks, take Izuku to the waiting room while I wrap things with Inko-san. Understood. The kid replies robotically and takes Izuku's hand. Izuku's mom smiles at him as he leaves the room. Hi, I'm Izuku. Izuku introduces himself as he walks with the kid. I'm Hawks. The kid replies with a smile, a clearly practiced smile. Is that your real name? Izuku asks. That's what my handlers call me. The kid replies, then he looks around a few times. Seeing that there's no one watching them, he lowers his voice. Look, kid, thank you for healing me, but you shouldn't have done it. But you were hurt, Izuku replies. I know, and you made it better. But now the president is interested on you. The kid replies, and you don't want her to be interested on you. Izuku nods and is about to ask something else when he hears steps approaching. Looking back, he sees his mom and another member of the HPSC. On the surface, she looks normal, but Izuku knows his mom well. She's furious about something. Izuku quickly says goodbye to Hawks and goes with her. They don't talk until they are in the car. I'm sorry, Mom, is the first thing Izuku says. I should have kept quiet. It's okay, sweetie, his mom replies. I'll never be angry at you for helping someone. But I made things harder, didn't I? Izuku asks. It's okay, his mom replies. Everything will be okay. Why? Because Mom is here. I'm so excited I won't even scold you this time, Izuku says as he heals Shuta's sprained wrist. It's just a sprain, kid, Shoyuta replies. And why are you so excited? I'll start elementary school tomorrow, Izuku cheers. I can finally go to school now that I'm not hiding my quirk anymore. And after school I'll start helping at the hero ward. Aren't you too young for that? Shoyuta asks. There are a lot of gruesome wounds in the hero ward. Never bothered me before. Izuku shrugs. Your leg wasn't even the worst wound I healed. If blood freaked me out, I wouldn't be very good at my job. You're 6, kid. You shouldn't have a job yet, Shoyuta replies. In a perfect world, maybe, Izuku says. But now that the HPSC knows about me, I need to become indispensable before they can bind me to a contract. Mom can't protect me forever. This is true and Shoyuta knows it. But a kid so young shouldn't. Everyone knows that Shoyuta hates the HPSC, and this is only one of the many reasons why. Alright, kid. Just remember that you aren't alone on this, Shoyuta says. A lot of heroes owe their lives to you already. It's okay, Izuku replies, and his smile comes back with full force. I might not have choice about this, but I'm not complaining. I love helping people. The world doesn't deserve this kid. Shoyuta will make sure Izuku isn't exploited by the commission. This is a promise. Chapter 3. Reality is often disappointing. Sounds dramatic? Izuku may be dramatic, but can you blame him? He was so excited to finally go to elementary school with Kaken. But right on the first day, he learned that Kaken was not the Kaken he knew anymore. Somehow, during the year they spent apart, Kaken became a bully. Izuku was so excited to tell Kaken about his quirk, but his friend's reaction was nothing as he expected. Instead of being happy for Izuku, Kaken laughed in his face and said that his quirk was useless. He said he couldn't be a hero with a quirk like that. Izuku doesn't even want to be a hero, and Kaken knows that. He always said he wanted to be a doctor like his mom, and his quirk is perfect for that. But apparently, for Kaken, anyone who doesn't want to become a hero is an useless extra. Things got even worse at lunchtime. Izuku caught Kaken bullying a kid and put himself between them. Kaken laughed at him and attacked him. But that was the moment Salazar got fed with his attitude and jumped out of Izuku's skin, taking a form much bigger than he usually does. He wrapped himself around Kaken and immobilized him. A teacher saw everything, and even though Kaken was bullying someone, he did nothing. But when Salazar attacked Kaken, Izuku was the one who got in trouble. They called his mom, but two men in suits came instead. They went to the principal's office and talked to him. After that, the principal came with a haunted expression and apologized to Izuku. Kaken got a suspension for what he did. Izuku doesn't know what happened, but he knows the two men in suit are probably part of the HPSC. After that, Izuku became basically untouchable at school. The only person not even Kaken can bully, and he hates it, but at least he can stop Kaken from bullying other people. It didn't take long for Izuku to become the most popular kid in school. He's kind and always helps everyone. He heals his classmates' scrapes and stops Kaken from bullying them. But despite this, Kaken absolutely hates his guts. He's smart enough not to start anything at school, but he's always the first one to call Izuku names. No matter how much Izuku hates it, Kaken keeps calling him Deku. But as long as the bullying isn't physical, the teachers don't care. Honestly, this school is shit, but there's nothing that Izuku can do about it. The only thing they can do is be petty and refuse to heal him no matter what. On the other hand, interning at the hero ward is everything Izuku could dream of. The doctors and nurses are kind and don't mind teaching him what he needs. He meets and talks to new heroes almost every day, and now he can officially heal heroes. On the first day, he meets Fatgum and gets his autograph. After that, he collects the autographs of every hero he meets. It's also in his first week that he meets someone new and re-encounters an old friend. Izuku was walking to room 231 to heal another patient and sighed when he recognized the name. He's about to knock on the door when he hears a familiar voice inside. "Sho, lie down," the voice scolds. "They said the healer will be here soon. Why are you running?" "Exactly because of that, Zashi," Eraserhead replies. "The healer is coming." "Correction," Izuku says as he enters. "The healer is already here." Izuku immediately recognizes Present Mike as the man with Eraserhead. He's out of costume, which makes him look very different, but his hair is just the right length, and his voice is unmistakable. "Hey there, little listener. You must be the new healer we heard of," Present Mike says and turns to show Yuta. "Are you really afraid of him?" "He's Inko's son," Eraserhead replies like it explains everything, and by the look Present Mike gives Izuku, it looks like it does. "Mom isn't that scary," Izuku mutters as he approaches the bedridden hero. "Nice to meet you, Present Mike." "Show Yuta. The little listener recognized me," Present Mike replies excitedly and turns to Izuku. "Nice to meet you too, little listener. You can call me Yamada when I'm out of costume. I doubt the grumpy here told you his name. He's Aizawa." "Well, that's the first time I see him in a hospital," Izuku replies and extends an arm. Salazar's head pops from his arm and looks intently at Eraserhead. "I almost didn't recognize him since he's not bleeding out while refusing healing," he teases. "I'm not that bad," Eraserhead mutters. "Yes, you are," both Izuku and Yamada say at the same time. "Stabbing," Salazar says. "Again. Are you sure your quirk isn't knife attraction?" Izuku asks as he puts his right hand over Eraserhead's bandaged torso. "The amount of stab wounds I had to heal from you is scary." "It's not that bad," Eraserhead tries again. "I have every wound I have ever healed written down in notebooks. Want to see yours?" Izuku asks, raising an eyebrow. "Okay." You made your point. Eraserhead sighs. I still think it's not that bad. You are my most frequent patient. Eraserhead. Izuku points. And that's considering that I have to practically hunt you down to heal you and, 9 out of 10 times, put you to sleep so I can heal you. Then he nods. All healed. But can you please take a day off to rest? Your eye bags have eye bags. Fine. Eraserhead agrees, and Izuku is almost sure it's only because his friend, partner, boyfriend, husband, is here. Otherwise, he knows the only for him to sleep would be with Izuku literally putting him to sleep. Great. Izuku nods. I have more people to heal, but I'll be back. And you better be here when I come back, Eraser, he says, making a watching you motion as he leaves the room. Oh my god, Sho. That was adorable. He hears Present Mike saying as he walks away. It's like you were being scolded by an angry kitten. Izuku just walks away, ignoring his blushing face and Salazar's laughing at him. Traitor. For the next years, that's his life. He goes to school, stops Kakin from bullying people, and then after school he goes to the hospital and spends his afternoon healing heroes. It's kind of scary the number of heroes he has to heal every day. But he can understand from seeing hero fights in the news. The vast majority of Limelight heroes are reckless dumbass, and he's no longer surprised by the number of heroes who die each year. He's still sad about the reality but not surprised. Well, actually, the number of hero deaths in Mustafu has dropped by 20% since Izuku started his internship, which coincides with the rate of heroes who used to survive long enough to get to the hospital but didn't survive their wounds. Izuku is proud to say that no hero, who ever made it to his hands alive, ever died. He's glad to know that he's actually making a difference. During his first year interning at the hospital, he gathered the autographs of practically all heroes. A few exceptions being All Might because the man never went to any hospitals, and Endeavor because he's an asshole who was rude to Izuku the whole time he was being healed and then refused to sign his notebook. After that, the Endeavor plush permanently lost his place on Izuku's bed. By his 8th birthday, practically every single hero already knew him by name. At 9, he was already the most sought-after healer in Japan. What he wouldn't ever expect was what would happen right after his 10th birthday. Everything for the greater good. Those are the words she has always lived by. Most people don't even know her name, calling her only Madam President. And that's fine, because her position allows her to do what she has to do for the greater good. Even if it means having to sentence to Tartarus, a woman who has always been a great hero but who has suffered a psychotic break because of the mistakes of her predecessor. It's for the greater good. Even if it means buying a child with dreams of being a hero and training him to be a soldier. It's for the greater good. Even if it means having to resort to a villain for help. So, I just have to bring the kid here? The villain with sharp metallic teeth asks as he looks at the picture of the small green-haired kid. And you are offering me 15 million yen for this? Seems too easy. Where is the catch? Don't forget his mother. Madam President reminds him. As long as she's alive, she will try to get him back. Still sounds too easy. The villain replies. This kid must have a fascinating quirk for you to want him so badly. If he touches you with all 5 fingers in his left hand, he can absorb your energy. She explains. He can also summon a snake. We don't know if it's venomous. Interesting. The villain grins. His metallic teeth reflected the lights in the room. Can I rough him? Make sure he has all fingers on his right hand. She replies. Other than that, just don't go too far. This will be fun. The villain replies. I'll call you as soon as I have the kid. See ya, Madam President. Then he leaves. As the villain leaves, she lets out a sigh as she buries deep inside her the guilt for what this kid is about to suffer. It's all for the greater good. Even if it means ripping a kid from everything he ever had. The HPSC can't miss the chance of having such a healer for themselves. Izuku doesn't quite understand what is happening. One moment he was walking home with his mom. The next, someone grabbed him, covered his mouth, and dragged him into an alley. His mom followed him, but just as they were out of sight, whoever was holding him pulled out a gun and shot her in the chest. Izuku's eyes widen as he sees his mom falling and blood gushing from the wound. Before he can understand what he is doing, he bites the villain hard. The villain, in his surprise, releases him, and Izuku runs to his mother, immediately putting his hand over the wound and beginning to heal it. Fortunately, the bullet has gone completely through her, so he doesn't have to worry about removing it first. "Oh, so this is why she wanted you," the villain says, and he hears steps towards him. Before he could finish the healing, the villain grabs and pulls him away from her. Izuku tries to grab him with his left hand, but the villain holds him by the wrist and pulls his hand towards his mouth filled with metallic-looking teeth. "Sorry, kid. Can't have you touching me." Then he covers Izuku's mouth again. "This will hurt." He puts Izuku's index and middle finger in his mouth and bites down. Izuku tries to scream from the pain of losing 2 fingers, but the villain has a tight hold on Izuku's mouth. Izuku can only watch in horror as the villain spits his fingers down. Salazar jumps from Izuku's skin and is about to attack, but the villain puts his mouth right next to Izuku's ear, and the snake stops. "I'd tell your pet to behave," the man says, "unless you want to lose an ear next." Salazar hisses, but he can't do anything. "Great, now go back to the kid. Try anything," and the boy loses an ear. Salazar goes back to Izuku, taking the form of a tattoo again. "Good boy." He pulls a pair of cuffs and locks it around Izuku's wrists. Then he shoves a muzzle on Izuku's face. Now that this is taken care of, he looks back to Izuku's mom on the floor. Izuku only managed to stop her bleeding, but she still couldn't move. "Nothing personal, lady." He points his gun at her. "I'm just doing what I was paid to do." Saying that, he pulls the trigger 5 more times, and Izuku watches in horror as the bullets hit her in the stomach, chest, and one in the head. Izuku tries to scream, but the muzzle barely lets him open his mouth. As he walks away, practically dragging Izuku with him, he pulls out his phone and dials a number. "Munch here," he says. "I got the kid, but change of plans." He looks down at Izuku, grinning. "I'm keeping him a bit more." Izuku vaguely hears a voice screaming from the phone, but the villain just hangs the call and starts dragging Izuku again. As they leave the alley, Izuku can only stare at his mom's lifeless body on the floor. Even Salazar's voice is incapable of bringing him any comfort. Chapter 4. "What do you mean he's gone?" Shoyuta snaps as he receives the news. "It's like I said, Shudakuen," Nedzu replies. "The police found Midoriya Inko's body, but Izuku is gone. We assume he was kidnapped." "Wasn't he supposed to be guarded 24/7? Shoyuta asks. "I know for sure that every time I went to observe him, there were at least 3 HPSC agents also observing him." "You're right, Shudakuen," Nedzu replies with a frown. "And the fact that even with all this security, he was caught and kidnapped in broad daylight can only mean one thing. It was them, wasn't it?" Shoyuta grits his teeth. "Those fucking corrupts. They're resorting to kidnapping kids now." "Unfortunately, we have no proof," Nedzu says. "But the thing is, they asked UA for help in finding Izuku. Which means that whoever they paid to kidnap Izuku went back on the deal." Shoyuta summarizes. "Do we have any leads?" "None." Nedzu shakes his head. "The only clue we have are 2 fingers found at the crime scene. DNA tests show that they belong to Izuku. So, not only the kid lost his mom, but he also lost 2 of his fingers and maybe even more. What kind of monster would do something like this to a child? Whoever did this is dead when I find them." Shoyuta grumbles as he gets up. "I'll start searching. It doesn't matter how good the villain is. There's no perfect crime." "Of course, Shudakuen," Nedzu nods. "I'll be helping the search as well. And I'm sure every single hero Izuku saved will also want to help." "Good. Bring everyone in," Shoyuta says. "We need to find Izuku as soon as possible. And for that, we'll need all eyes on the streets." "We'll find him, Shudakuen," Nedzu says. "And when we do, I have everything I need. He won't fall in the HPSC's hands." Shoyuta nods and leaves the room, going straight to the crime scene. He might be able to find something the police didn't. For now, he can only hope that Izuku is fine. Or at least alive. Izuku doesn't know when, but at some point he fell asleep. Fainted is a better word. And when he woke up, he was in an empty room. His head feels hazy, but not in the same way as when he has just woken up. This is how he feels when he gets sick. He tries to raise a hand to his head, but something stops him. Looking down, he realizes his hands are bound by shackles. He can barely lift his hands above his chest. The shackles are firmly attached to the wall in a way that Izuku doubts that even someone with a minor strength quirk could break free, much less a scrawny 10-year-old boy. Then looking at his right hand, his breathing hitches when he notices the bandages crudely wrapped on his hand, blood soaking through the white fabric, and he remembers what the villain did yesterday. "I healed it," he hears Salazar's voice, just enough to stop the bleeding after he wrapped it. "Better conserve energy." Izuku nods. "We don't know what he intends to do, and if he learns that you can heal me..." He shivers at the thought. Because one thing became clear from his kidnapping, the villain Munch, if he heard correctly, likes to hurt people. Then, just as Izuku is about to say something else, the door to the room is kicked open, and Izuku's jaw snaps shut. Two villains walk in together. The first one is Munch, but the second one is bleeding heavily from a wound on the chest. "Heal him," Munch orders. Izuku looks at the other person for a few seconds, then back at Munch and shakes his head. "You think you have a choice?" He grabs Izuku's right hand and bites his arm, making Izuku scream in pain as the blood trickles from the wound. "Heal him. Now." "Izuku," he hears Salazar's voice. "Please, obey him. He'll hurt you more." Izuku hesitantly raises his right arm towards the other man, with Salazar already resting in place. The other man gets closer, and Izuku puts a hand over the wound, which quickly closes and heals. "Amazing," the man says and turns back to Munch. "You said 100,000 yen, right?" 100,000? You are mistaken. I want 1 million yen. Munch replies with a smirk. 1 million? Are you crazy? The other villain snaps. You said 100,000. Don't mess with me, the villain says and pulls out a gun. Munch opens his mouth and bites the gun, shattering it like it's nothing. Then, before the other villain can do anything else, Munch opens his mouth again, and this time he bites the man's jugular. The villain falls to the floor, drowning in a puddle of his own blood. "Ready to pay now? No? Too bad." He kicks the man on the floor and leaves the room. Izuku tries to reach him. He doesn't want to let someone die in front of him, even if it's a villain. But the man is just outside of his reach, so he can only watch as life slips from the man's eyes. The blood keeps flowing from his neck, and soon it reaches Izuku, but he can't even move out of reach, and soon he's sitting in a blood puddle. It's too much for him. He wants to scream. He wants to puke. He wants to cry. He wants his mom. There's not a lot to be said about him. One day he just started existing. A sentient quirk, they called him. He never cared about labels, though. He never cared about what he is. The only thing he ever cared about was making sure Midoriya Izuku is safe. And he had never felt so much like a failure like now. He couldn't do anything as Izuku was hurt and kidnapped by this villain. He couldn't do anything as the villain bit off 2 of Izuku's fingers. He couldn't do anything as Izuku had to see someone dying in front of him for the first time. He can't even comfort his human. The only thing he can do is heal him, but even that is a bad idea. Just as he was moving to heal Izuku's arm, he heard Izuku over their mental link. Izuku never talks via their mental link unless they are far away from each other. He prefers to use his voice to talk. "Just stop the bleeding," Izuku says. "Something tells me Munch will want us to heal a lot of people. We need to conserve energy." Salazar knows that he's right, but that's not the real reason why it's a bad idea to heal Izuku. Munch already made it quite clear that he's willing. No, he actually likes to hurt Izuku. Salazar fears learning how much worse it'll be if the villain realizes that he can heal Izuku. Munch doesn't know about the limitations of Izuku's quirk. He doesn't know how dangerous it is for them to go over these limits. And Salazar is pretty sure that he wouldn't care even if he knew. Salazar wants nothing more than to jump out of Izuku's skin, grow to his maximum size, and attack Munch. But he can't. He doesn't know if the villain is alone. He doesn't know if he's somehow monitoring them. If he tries anything and fails, Izuku is the one who'll suffer. So the best they can do is buy as much time as they can. Because Salazar is sure that the heroes are looking for them, he has no doubt that sooner or later, they'll be found. They just need to survive long enough to be rescued. They can do this. The worst part of being attached to Izuku is that whenever Salazar is not outside of Izuku's body, he has no real autonomy. In this state, his form is that of a tattoo, and he can move around Izuku's body. However, his vision is bound to Izuku's, so he can only see what Izuku sees. Normally, this is not a problem. Salazar doesn't mind being attached to his human. But Izuku has been completely irresponsible for the last few hours. He hasn't taken his eyes off the dead body in front of him nor the pool of blood, which by now is cold. It's as if he hopes that the body will move again if he stares hard enough. Salazar knows what is happening to his human. They have studied it in the past. Dissociation. Izuku is dissociating, and Salazar can't do anything to bring him back. He has tried calling Izuku a few times, but he's just not responding. He never felt so useless. It's a few hours later that Munch comes back. This time he has a phone in his ear, and he doesn't sound happy. I already said, if you want him back, I won't accept less than 10 times our agreed value, he says on the phone. As he walks closer, Izuku finally comes back and looks at the villain in fear. He's right here. He stops in front of Izuku, roughly pulls him up, and puts the phone to Izuku's ear. Midoriya Izuku? It's a woman's voice, one that Salazar still recognizes despite only having heard it once years ago. Why yes, Izuku replies. I need you to pay attention, Midoriya, she says. Look around. Can you see anything that might help us find you? Anything. Izuku quickly looks around, his eyes landing on the single visible window. He can see a single thing from it, a huge skyscraper. TTTHRGH. He lets out a gut-wrenching scream and looks up to see Munch biting his shoulder. He drops the phone. No giving hints about your location. You're a bad boy. He grins, showing his bloodied teeth. And bad boys need to be punished. For the next few minutes, the only sounds in the room are Izuku's screams and Munch's laughter. Salazar wants more than anything to do something to stop this, but he can't. That's when he notices the phone on the floor. The call didn't drop. Salazar slithers down Izuku's leg, and once he's sure that Munch is too occupied torturing Izuku to notice, he materializes under the hem of Izuku's pants. He carefully gets out, and once he's close enough to the phone, he starts tapping a pattern with his tail. He hopes whoever is on the other side will understand. Dash, 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 dash. He knows it's not much, but he hopes it helps. Skyscraper. The voice asks, are you on a skyscraper? Or can you see a skyscraper? Salazar taps twice. Understood. Salazar can't send anything more because the screams stop. He turns back and sees that Izuku has passed out from the pain. He looks completely wrecked, with dozens of wounds bleeding all through his body. Munch starts turning around, and Salazar instantly lets his physical form go. He instantly goes back to Izuku's skin. As a Quirk, he can't feel pain, but he wishes he could share the pain with his human, if only to relieve a small part of his pain. Munch takes back the phone from the ground, shaking it slightly to get rid of the blood, and starts leaving the room. This is just the start, you know? He says as he walks away. Are you ready to negotiate? The recording only has sound. It is a recording of a phone call, after all. But still, it paints a horrible picture for all the heroes. It lasts about 10 minutes, but halfway through, when the agonizing screams of a child being tortured begin, most of the heroes listening cannot stand it. All around the room, Shoyuta hears people crying, vomiting, or both in some cases. Shoyuta is honestly not surprised. Most Limelight heroes have never dealt with kidnapping cases, let alone kidnappings involving children. And even for the undergrounds, this is different. Because it's Izuku who has been kidnapped. The kind, smiling boy who has saved the lives of 90% of the people in this room. Everyone here has some attachment to the boy. And to hear the cries of pain as a psychopath tortures him is nothing less than a knife being twisted in the chest of every one of them. A tapping pattern can be heard on the phone about 1 minute after the screams start, and Shoyuta instantly knows who's making it. He has never been so thankful for a sentient Quirk like today. According to the clue Salazar gave them, there's a skyscraper visible from whatever they are. This narrows things a little, but not that much. There are more than 80 skyscrapers in Japan. But considering that Munch is still trying to negotiate with the HPSC, he must be close to the area. This narrows the possibilities to less than 15. They don't have much, but it's much more than they had before, and Shoyuta has no intention of letting this trail get cold. They will find Izuku, and Munch will regret the day he thought it was a good idea to kidnap the most beloved healer in Japan. This is a promise. Chapter 5. Chapter text. The days go by in a blur. The only reason Izuku knows how much time has passed is because Salazar is counting. Most of the time, Izuku is dissociating. Not that he misses much. Usually, Munch brings 1 or 2 people for him to heal and then leaves. If he's in a particularly bad or good mood, he tortures Izuku some more. Izuku's body is practically covered with bite marks made by his sharp teeth, not to mention cuts and bruises. After the second day, Munch got tired of using only his quirk. Izuku has been here for 4 days now, and the last time he ate anything was on the day of his abduction. The only reason his stomach isn't bothering him so much is that the rest of his wounds are much more painful. Still, the worst part is knowing how hard this is for Salazar. Izuku can feel the guilt for not being able to help more emanating from the snake quirk. He wishes Salazar could see how much he's helping just by being here. If he was alone, Izuku is sure he would have broken already. He might have died from blood loss had Salazar not closed his wounds. And his comforting voice is the only thing keeping him sane. On the third day, Munch took the body out of the room, so Izuku doesn't have to keep looking at the dead body of the person he couldn't save. But still, he couldn't be bothered in cleaning the blood pool, which had mostly dried by now. Izuku looks up in fear when the door opens. Munch already tortured him today. He doesn't know if he can take it anymore. He's shaking heavily as the villain walks to him while eating a sandwich. His belly growls involuntarily. The villain stops in front of Izuku and takes 1 more bite of the sandwich. Then he extends his arm, offering him half. It has to be a trick. Izuku knows it, but he still finds himself trying to reach for it. He's so hungry that he can't even think straight. Just as his fingers brush the sandwich, Munch drops it in the blood pool on the floor. Izuku looks at it, with tears falling from his eyes. "Oops," Munch says. "Hey, cheer up." He pats Izuku's cheek. "I'm sure it's still edible." Then he leaves the room laughing. As he leaves, Izuku finds himself reaching for the bloodied sandwich, but just as he's about to reach it, a snake tail jumps from his hand and shoves it out of his reach. "Why?" Izuku asks, looking at his arm. He can feel the guilt spiking from Salazar, but not regret. "I'm sorry, Zuzu," the snake says, "but you can't eat this. On top of everything you're going through, I can't allow you to also get sick." He's right. Izuku knows he's right, but still, as Izuku looks at the bloodied sandwich, just out of his reach, he can feel another piece of his heart breaking. He thought he had no more tears to shed, but he finds himself crying again. If Salazar ever gets his teeth into that damn villain, he will regret the day he ever saw the color green. It's been 6 days since Izuku has been here, and still no sign of the heroes. They must hurry. Salazar doesn't know how much longer Izuku can keep going. Munch doesn't seem to care if Izuku survives or dies as long as he makes as much money as possible in the meantime. The bites all over Izuku's body are proof enough. Not to mention the hunger. It's honestly amazing that Izuku hasn't passed out from starvation yet. He hasn't eaten anything for 6 days now, which in a normal situation would be difficult enough. But with the wounds he has, Salazar knows how much energy his body must be using to try to heal itself. As usual, Munch enters the room for his usual torture session. This time he has a cage with him. He simply drops the cage on the floor and has his fun with Izuku. It takes all of Salazar's high control not to jump on his jugular. But he would have only one chance, and if he failed, Munch would surely kill Izuku. The risk is too big. When he's over, and Izuku is on the floor bleeding and barely conscious, Munch starts leaving. He stops by the cage and turns back to Izuku. "Oh, I have a gift for you." As he opens the cage, an enormous rat jumps. "Since you didn't want the food I so generously gave you, maybe your pet will appreciate this more. By the way, the rat hasn't eaten in a while." And just as always, the asshole closes the door and leaves laughing. Izuku tries to get up, but the heavy chains and the pain from the torture don't let him. The rat slowly inches towards him. Noticing Izuku can't protect himself, he attacks, but Salazar isn't having it. He quickly jumps from Izuku's arm and swallows the creature whole. He might be a quirk, but it doesn't change that he's a snake. After eating the rat, he immediately goes back into Izuku, even if the energy used to keep Salazar's physical form is minimal. "Salazar." Izuku's eyes widen. "My belly stopped hurting," he says. "I'm still hungry, but it's not as bad as it was. I think..." He coughs because of his dry throat. "I think you can eat for me." Neither of them had ever heard of a sentient quirk that could eat for their user, but sentient quirks in themselves are rare. Quirks are weird, and no one ever heard of a quirk like Salazar. So maybe he's right, and if he's right, it means that he can finally help Izuku. He can't leave for long, but they are very close to an alley. Salazar can find some rats to eat. It'll help keep Izuku alive. "Zuzu," Salazar calls, taking physical form again. "I'll find more. If Munch comes back, call me and I'll come back immediately." "All right." Izuku nods and Salazar goes for the window. Even if Izuku wasn't chained to the wall, the window would be too high for him to reach. But Salazar? Not a problem at all. And luckily for them, a few rats are easy to find. For the first time since this started, they have something to give them hope. With Salazar hunting rats in the nearby alley, things are starting to look up. Izuku doesn't let Munch see it, but he's much healthier than he was a few days ago. Fortunately, Salazar eating sewer rats doesn't appear to be a risk for Izuku as long as he's not the one actually eating. Once this is over, they really need to test how this works. It's the 8th day. The only reason Izuku knows is because Salazar is still counting. The quirk is doing everything he can to keep Izuku hopeful and optimistic. Still, each day without any indication of a possible rescue makes it harder for Izuku to keep faith. This day, Munch enters, looking completely pissed off, and Izuku knows he's about to take all his anger on him. He's already shaking before the villain even gets close. "Fucking nosy heroes," he screams as he walks to Izuku and kicks him in the stomach. "Always meddling where they are not called. Trying to save everyone. Some damn underground has just arrested one of my goons." He keeps kicking Izuku on the floor as he talks. "Some hobo-looking man with a gray scarf." A hobo-looking underground hero who uses a gray scarf? This can only be one person. But before Izuku could think more about it, Munch yanks him by the hair, forcing him to look up. "I wouldn't get my hopes up," he says with a sadistic grin. "My goons are well trained. They know what I'll do to them if they say anything." Then he drops Izuku. "I feel better. If I knew how therapeutic this is, I would have kidnapped a kid sooner." "Thanks, kid," he says, patting Izuku on the head, then leaves laughing again. Izuku's breathing is shallow. He probably has a broken rib at the very least, but this doesn't matter. "Eraserhead," Izuku mumbles, smiling despite the pain. Because if Eraserhead captured one of Munch's men, it doesn't matter how much he might fear the villain. Eraserhead will make him talk. Shoyuta and Zashi are both in the police station watching from behind the mirror as a policeman tries very poorly to get information from the arrested criminal. Really, where did this guy learn to interrogate someone? This has been going on for 30 minutes, and the criminal hasn't said anything yet. Finally, the idiot leaves the room shaking his head. "It's useless. He won't say a thing," the cop says, shaking his head. "Let me try," Shoyuta says, turning to Tsukachi. "Turn off the cameras for 5 minutes. I'll make him talk." "What? We can't do this," the cop says. "There's rules we need to FO. Tsukachi raises his hand and stops the cop. "Mike, you go with him," Tsukachi says, pushing a button. 5 minutes. Cameras are off. The room is soundproof. What are they going to do? Good cop, bad cop? It won't work. The other cop replies as Zashi and Shoyuta enter. You'd be surprised by who is actually the bad cop, Shoyuta says. Just make sure he can actually answer our questions. Tsukachi sighs and gestures to the other cop. Come on, I want a coffee. Once Tsukachi and the other cop are out, Shoyuta enters the room with Zashi right behind him. He immediately goes to the man and grabs him by the collar. Start talking, he says. No dice, Hoboman. The guy replies. You think this is my first interrogation? You'll need more than some good cop, bad cop to make me talk. You better start talking. Before a hand on his shoulder stops him, and Shoyuta looks to the side to see Zashi shaking his head. You're letting your anger blind you, Eraser, he says. It's making you sloppy. Then he takes hold of the criminal and throws him to the other side of the room. Now, let me handle this, will you? Shoyuta sighs and takes a step back. Well, I tried warning you, he says as Zashi slowly inches toward the man. He really hopes the room is as soundproof as Tsukachi says. 5 minutes later. The criminal is sitting in a fetal position on the floor, bawling like a little kid, when the door opens and Tsukachi enters. Shoyuta crouches in front of him and puts a gentle hand on his knee. Ready to talk? He asks. Or would like to talk to present Mike again? No, please, I'll talk. I swear, the criminal pleads. Tsukachi sighs and steps forward. True, he says. Now let's get this over with. Where is the kid? I don't know, the criminal replies and Zashi takes a step closer. I don't know, I swear. The boss doesn't let anyone know where he stays. Look, I can't control my friend much longer, Shoyuta says, pointing at Zashi. So you better give us some information that we can work with. Shibuya, the guy says quickly. Most of our operations are centered in Shibuya, and Munch likes to keep a close eye on his goons, so he must stay in the area. Shoyuta looks at Tsukachi, who nods at him. I really hope you aren't hiding information, Zashi says as they start walking out the door. You won't like what will happen if we have to come back here. They leave the shaking criminal in the room and leave. So, we have information and a traumatized criminal, Tsukachi says as they leave the room. We'll start organizing the patrols immediately. You can do this, Shoyuta says as he starts walking out. I'll scout the area first. Don't do anything stupid, Eraser, Tsukachi warns. We don't know what Munch might do to the kid if we corner him. I know, Shoyuta replies. Believe me, the kid's safety is my absolute priority. This is the most promising lead that the heroes have found since the kidnapping. Since Shoyuta started patrolling this area, he has already managed to arrest 3 other goons associated with Munch, but he still doesn't know where the villain is. Although it's still daylight, here is Shoyuta scouting yet another route for any place where a psychopathic villain might be hiding a kid. According to the clue they have, a skyscraper is visible from where they are. Izuku is clearly not gagged, judging by how much he was screaming in the recordings they received. This means that either he is in a soundproof place or Munch controls the whole area, and the civilians are afraid to report him. The second option is the most likely. What about? The sound of a can being knocked over draws Shuta's attention to an alley. Upon checking it out, to his surprise, Shoyuta finds a black and green snake trying to hunt the rats in the alley. An extremely familiar black and green snake. Salazar, Shoyuta asks, and the snake turns to look at him. Shoyuta doesn't know if it's possible, but he's sure the snake's eyes widen upon seeing him there. Can you bring me to Izuku? He asks, and the snake immediately turns and starts going into the alley. Taking the hint, Shoyuta follows him. He follows the snake for about 2 blocks until it freezes. Turning to Shoyuta, the snake starts writing on the ground with its tail in a hurry and then disappears into thin air. Shoyuta quickly goes and checks what the snake wrote. We are close. Find him. It's the message. Something must have happened, but that's not important right now. Shoyuta knows Izuku is close. He just needs to find the kid. Send all underground heroes you can to my location, Shoyuta says in his comms. I found the area he's in. We just need to find the building. Then he keeps going. Just a little longer, Izuku. We'll save you. It's on the 10th day of Izuku's kidnapping that something finally happens. He knows about Salazar's run-in with Eraserhead the day before, and this knowledge is what brings him the hope he needs to hang on just a little longer. He knows something must be happening when Munch doesn't appear to torture him at the usual time. But he can hear yelling from outside, which means someone is here. Could it be? Izuku mutters. Then suddenly, the door is kicked open, and Munch enters with a completely pissed-off expression. Time to go, brat, he says as he pulls a key and undoes the shackles on Izuku's hands. As he pulls Izuku up and starts dragging him, Izuku can only think one thing. He can't let Munch drag him away. He needs to hold down until the heroes get here. They have practically no energy left, but it still must be enough for this. Salazar, Izuku calls. The snake Quirk jumps from Izuku's skin, but not in his usual size. No, this time, Salazar turns into a 30-feet-long green anaconda and starts wrapping around Munch. I wanted to do this for so long, Salazar says as he starts to squeeze. Bastard! Munch scrams and bites into Salazar. Izuku can see the pained expression on the snake, but he doesn't let go. Instead, he bites into Munch's leg. You want to play the biting game? You think you can win? I can bite through steel, he says and opens his mouth as wide as he can. Then, like a crocodile, he closes his mouth with full force, cutting Salazar in half. The Quirk stops struggling and falls to the floor. Izuku watches wide-eyed as the snake stops moving, then disappears. Salazar, he screams. Bastard, Munch says and spits blood. Now stop struggling, brat. The heroes won't save you in time. He steps toward Izuku, who starts walking back. He's limping, which means that Salazar caused some actual damage. But Izuku barely has the energy to stay up, let alone run. The best he can do is keep walking back as Munch follows him. I was going to go easy on you this time, brat, Munch says when he manages to grab Izuku. But you forced my jaw here. Don't blame me for this. Munch opens his mouth and is about to bite Izuku again. But suddenly, a gray fabric wraps around his head, and he's pulled away from Izuku. Stop! He hears a familiar scream. Izuku has no energy left. Closing his eyes, he falls to his knees and is about to fall to the floor when he feels a pair of arms wrapping around him. He opens his eyes and sees a black jumpsuit and a gray scarf. You're here, he says, starting to tear up. You came. Yes, I'm here, kid, Eraserhead replies. You can rest now. You're safe. Izuku nods and his eyes start dropping. Thank you. It's the last thing he says before passing out. Chapter 6. Chapter text. Shoyuta freezes when Izuku collapses in his arms, but he soon realizes that he is only unconscious. Still, his condition is terrible. Shuta's blood boils as he sees all the bite marks, cuts, and bruises all over Izuku's body. Shoyuta wants nothing more than to finish off this damned villain himself. But the priority is to get Izuku to safety. You like hurting kids, huh? Besides, he knows whatever he wants to do, Zashi will do much worse. So he scoops the kid in his arms and rushes outside, where an ambulance is already waiting for them. Thanks to Nedzu, and because Inko put on her will that if anything happened to her, she wanted Shoyuta to take care of Izuku, something she never told him. Shoyuta gets to ride to the hospital with the kid. Shoyuta is more than grateful for that because, honestly, he doesn't think he can bring himself to be apart from the kid until he knows for sure he's fine. Shoyuta barely breathes as the paramedics start cleaning Izuku's multiple wounds, most infected due to poor treatment, and hooking 4 on the kid's little arm. Izuku has always been small, but at this moment, the kid looks absolutely tiny. When they undo the bandages on the kid's left hand, the paramedic freezes. What's this? He asks. Shoyuta scoots closer and sees what he's referring to. That's Salazar. It's his quirk. Shoyuta replies. I don't know what he's doing though. I heard he has a healing quirk. The second paramedic says. Maybe it's trying to heal him. First, he's trying. Shoyuta says. Salazar uses male pronouns. Second, it's possible. But Izuku's quirk uses energy to heal wounds, and I don't know if he has enough. Let's hurry to the hospital. The first paramedic yells to the driver. We need to connect it to the proper machinery so we can properly monitor its condition. Being broken in half is not an experience Salazar would recommend to anyone. The advantage of being a Quirk is that as long as Izuku is alive, Salazar cannot die. With what little consciousness Izuku still has, Salazar hears Aizawa talking to someone, probably the paramedics. First, he's trying. Salazar uses male pronouns. Did Salazar ever say that Aizawa is his favorite? Well, besides Izuku and Inko. But third favorite is good. Second is possible. But Izuku's Quirk uses energy to heal wounds, and I don't know if he has enough. And he's right about that one. Salazar and Izuku barely have any energy left. Not just that, healing Izuku's wounds has always been very inefficient. Salazar needs 5 times more energy than he would need to heal the same wounds in other people. And Izuku doesn't have this energy at the moment. He knows it'll worry everyone, but he can't bring himself to care at the moment. Salazar travels all the way toward Izuku's head. He can hear the paramedics gasping at his sudden movement, but he ignores it and curls himself around Izuku's head like a headband. Concentrating, Salazar can feel how Izuku completely shuts down. The only thing still working being his most fundamental bodily functions. Everything else is shut down so Izuku can regain his energy as soon as possible. With that, Salazar can't hear what's happening outside anymore, but he doesn't care. All he cares about at the moment is healing Izuku. With that in mind, he immediately starts working on it, letting all the energy there slowly raining flow through Izuku's body towards his worst injuries first. Salazar can feel it'll take some time, though. Hisashi is sure that this week he will receive at least a dozen fines. Driving to the hospital, he ran 15 stoplights, drove at least 50 over the limit, and parked in a no-parking zone. As he rushes into the hospital, he soon realizes the car will probably be towed, but he can't bring himself to care. "I'm here for Midoriya Izuku," he says at the entrance lobby. "I'm Yamada Hisashi." The attendant checks the system, and seeing Hisashi is listed as Izuku's guardian with Shoyuta, she points ahead. "He's in the hero ward, room 213, the attendant says, and Hisashi spares her a single smile before running straight to the room. Hisashi stops in front of the door to catch his breath before entering, and what he finds inside is both adorable and heartbreaking. Izuku is unconscious in the hospital bed, his whole body wrapped in bandages. Shoyuta is sitting in front of the bed, holding the kid's right hand, and he has been crying. It's not very noticeable, between Shuta's usual neutral expression and chronic dry eye, but Hisashi knows his husband very well. Hisashi knocks on the door once before entering, and the only indication Shoyuta notices is the quick side glance he gives before looking back at Izuku. It's like he thinks Izuku will disappear if he's out of his sight. "How's the little listener?" Hisashi asks as he steps in, putting a comforting hand on Shuta's shoulder. Cracked ribs, dozens of infected cuts and bites, quirk and regular exhaustion, and apparently has been starving as well. Shoyuta describes, "If we took a little longer, 1 or 2 more days." Stop. Hisashi interrupts before his husband spirals any further. "We didn't take 1 or 2 more days. We found him on time. The little listener is alive, and now we can focus on helping him recover." "He's in a coma," Shoyuta says. "Not a regular coma, though. It's quirk-induced. We believe Salazar did it so he could heal him. I don't think they had enough energy." "Any idea how long it will take?" Hisashi asks, eyeing the little listener. All the bandages covering his body make him look even smaller than he is. God, the little listener is only 10. He shouldn't have to go through something like this. "No idea," Shoyuta replies. "I don't know how thorough with the healing Salazar wants to be either." "Well, this actually makes me feel a lot less bad about losing control and crushing that bastard's heart into paste," Hisashi says with a sigh. "Unfortunately, this means we can't interrogate him. So we have no proof against the HPSC." Shoyuta sighs. "Well, we can worry about them later." He looks back at Izuku. "When the kid is awake and safe. I'm sure Majima is already making at least a dozen trackers for him," Hisashi says. "And Nedzu is making sure the HPSC won't ever dream of touching him again." I hate those bastards, Shoyuta says. I know, dear. I hate them too, Hizashi replies. But now that we got Izuku back, we won't ever let them get him. He'll be safe with us. How? She's sure she destroyed all evidence of what they did. There shouldn't be anything tying Munch to the HPSC. So, why the hell is there a folder with all the evidence of their deal? How did the rat put his dirty paws on something like this? She never considered Yue's principal a threat before. Did she really underestimate the rat that much? So, the rat bear dog thing says, grinning at her. What do you say, Madam President? Yes, she did underestimate him too much. This is a predator, and at the moment, she is the prey. Do we have a deal? Or should all heroes learn what really happened to their beloved healer? Not to mention the cause of Japan's most beloved surgeon's death. We have a deal, she says, gritting her teeth. The HPSC won't go after the healer again. President Mike won't be suspended due to excessive force used against the villain. She clenches her fists tightly. And the HPSC will not meddle in any UA High-related matters. I knew you were a smart woman, Netsu says, grinning and pushing the folder toward her. You can keep this as a reminder. You won't like what will happen if you ever go back on your word. Saying that, the rat jumps down and walks out. Madam President can only look at the retreating figure. Until now, she only saw Netsu as an animal with higher-than-average intelligence. She never thought the rat was such a threat. But it's too late now. She's already cornered, and there's nothing she can do about it. It's checkmate. She lost. Shoyuta barely got up from this chair ever since Izuku first entered. Honestly, he's blessed to have such an understanding husband. Zashi not only subbed him for all his classes but also been in and out, bringing food and clean clothes for Shoyuta and keeping an eye on Izuku while Shoyuta took a shower. He doesn't know what he'd do without him. Izuku still hasn't woken up, and it's been almost a week. Most of his wounds are healed already. Shoyuta remembers the gasps of all the doctors when they saw Izuku's finger growing back in front of their eyes. That's something not even the best healing quirks in the world are capable of. Izuku and Salazar are really incredible. The bite marks are also mostly healed. Izuku still has a few wounds left to heal, but judging by how strong Salazar's healing is, he won't have any scars left. Still, not all scars are physical. Shoyuta is already thinking of how he's going to broach the subject of therapy with the kid. He has no doubt he'll need it. But all that can wait. At the moment, the only thing Shoyuta wants is for the kid to wake up. He wants to hear his voice again. He even misses being scolded by Izuku over his poor health habits. Please, problem child, he says, holding Izuku's hand tightly. Just wake up. Shoyuta ignores the tears falling down from his eyes. If anyone asks, he'll deny it until his death. It's been 1 week, give or take, since Salazar started healing Izuku. All his worst injuries are healed, and the fingers he lost have regrown. Still, he wants the healing to be perfect. Salazar doesn't want Izuku to have to deal with physical scars on top of all the mental scars he no doubt has now. That is why he is being so thorough and careful with his healing. Salazar knows he has to wake up Izuku soon, though. There's a limit to how long he can keep this going. But even if there wasn't, he just knows everyone is worried about Izuku. He might not be able to see or hear what's happening outside, but he knows Izuku's friends, his actual friends. He won't be surprised if he learns that Aizawa has been camping in the hospital room ever since Izuku was admitted. Your turn. Salazar turns around and sees Izuku lazily looking at the chessboard. There's this too. While Salazar can shut down Izuku's body, there is no real way to shut down his consciousness. So Izuku stays in this place that is like a subspace within the quirk. They call it the mindscape. And there's only so much he can do to keep a 10-year-old boy entertained while simultaneously healing all his wounds. He knows Izuku is doing his best not to think about his mom until he wakes up, but he's obviously at his limit. Maybe it's time. Checkmate, Salazar says, pushing a bishop with his tail. Damn, you're too good at this. Izuku smiles. Nah, it's just that your head isn't on the game, Salazar replies. I know. It's just, Izuku says, his smile fading. I want to go back. I want to see Aizawa and Yamada. I want a hug. I want mom. He starts tearing up. Salazar does his best, but snakes aren't the best huggers in the world. Still, he slithers toward Izuku and curls around his human, resting his head on the crook of Izuku's neck. I think it's enough, Salazar says. I healed you enough, and I can keep healing you while you're awake. You can go back if you want to. I healed your hand, so you can absorb energy again. Thank you, Salazar. Izuku smiles warmly at him. You're the best. No, you are, Salazar replies. Now, close your eyes. I'll let you wake up now. I'm ready, Izuku says, closing his eyes. Izuku opens his eyes and immediately closes them again. The room is too bright. He lets out an involuntary groan and tries moving his hand toward his face, but something stops him. Someone is holding his hand. Izuku! He hears a very familiar voice and slowly opens his eyes again. With his eyes a bit more used to the light, he looks to the side and sees Aizawa holding his hand. With all the strength he can muster, Izuku smiles. I'm back, Zawa, Izuku says. Welcome back, problem child, Aizawa replies, and Izuku can see tears glistening in his eyes. Izuku doesn't have much strength at the moment, but he still forces himself to sit up on the bed and practically throws himself in Aizawa's arms. For the first time since his kidnapping, Izuku lets everything out and starts sobbing. Aizawa hugs him tightly and gently rubs his back. Everything is okay now, Aizawa says. It's over. No one will hurt you here. Chapter 7. Despite being awake, Izuku feels very weak. Well, 10 days of starvation plus a week of coma would probably cause that in anyone. He still came out of it all well. Most people in his situation don't have the ability to heal on the same level as Izuku. To his surprise, his mother's funeral had not yet passed. Apparently, everyone was too preoccupied with finding Izuku to hold awake. But now that Izuku is awake and, relatively, well, Aizawa and Yamada have organized everything for the funeral. They also asked Izuku at least 10 times if Izuku was really fine to attend. Well, he is. There's no way in hell he's missing his mom's funeral. Whether on crutches or in a wheelchair, Izuku is going. Thankfully, they seem to accept his decision. The funeral had a lot more people attending than Izuku expected. But at the same time, it's not surprising. Midoriya Inko was probably the greatest surgeon Japan has ever known. Most of the heroes that Izuku has healed were probably operated on by her. Not to mention the huge number of civilians. Inko was known to perform expensive surgeries for free to help people who could not afford them. The amount of people who owed her their lives is enormous. But this doesn't matter anymore, because she's gone, and all the people crying is just another reminder for Izuku. As he stares at the picture above the coffin, Izuku can't help but remember the day she died. Every time he closes his eyes, Izuku finds himself back in that alley, watching helplessly as Munch shoots her. Izuku knows the time is passing. He thinks at some moment he talked to Auntie Mitsuki and gave her a hug. Bakugo said something as well, but Izuku can't remember what. He's mostly going on autopilot. He spent most of the time just staring at his mom's picture. But he didn't cry. It's weird. If there was a moment he should break down, it was probably now. But no. It's like all his tears dried. He feels like crying, but he can't. He can feel Salazar wrapped around his neck. His presence is very grounding, but Izuku stays silent. After the funeral, Izuku goes home with Aizawa and Yamada. They have dinner, though Izuku can't remember what they ate. And then they all cuddle on the couch while watching a movie. As they do it, Izuku can't help but remember all the times he did the same with his mom and Salazar. It's a very familiar feeling. One that finally tilts him over the edge and makes the waterworks start. Aizawa and Yamada don't comment on it, though. They just pull him closer in a hug. Izuku falls asleep halfway through the movie, and the next he wakes up still curled up with them on the couch. During breakfast, Izuku looks at his new guardians. Aizawa, Yamada, he calls. I want to start therapy. Aizawa and Yamada stop and glance at each other. Is it a problem? No, of course not. Yamada says. We were actually trying to think of how to broach the subject. We thought we would need to convince you, Aizawa says. Most people think that therapy is something that makes them weak, or that it means they are broken. Yeah, no, That's bullshit. Izuku chuckles. Get me a therapist. I need to cry this out. Sure thing, little listener, Yamada says. We'll find you a therapist. Great. Izuku smiles before going back to his food. It takes one more week for Salazar to finish healing Izuku, but once he's done, the only thing left from Izuku's kidnapping is the trauma. Something that, unfortunately, Salazar can't heal. But well, there's something he can do. Just a small warning. While Izuku sleeps, Salazar jumps out of his body, changing his form. One thing that Salazar and Izuku learned very early is that Salazar can take the form of any kind of snake as long as Izuku had seen it before. Regardless of the form he takes, though, Salazar isn't venomous. But as he slithers through the HPSC building, he can't help but smile internally. Because while he knows he's not venomous, the HPSC president doesn't. Madam President enters her office expecting to return to the stack of papers she needs to sign. But as she looks at her desk, she freezes. On her desk, on top of her messy papers, is a king cobra staring directly at her. The snake is raised and hissing at her, ready to strike. She takes a step back, trying to think of what she should do. She can't take her eyes off the snake in case it attacks. King cobras are among the most venomous kinds. How did this even get here? And why is it looking at her like that? Could it be a quirked animal? Or maybe someone ordered to attack her? Animal controlling quirks aren't that uncommon. Hey! My handler told me to bring you that. She snaps her eyes to the door as Hawks enter with some more papers in his hands. What's going on? Quick, Hawks. Get the... She turns back to her desk, but the cobra disappeared. What the hell? Where did it go? There was a king cobra on my desk. A king cobra? Hawks asks. I didn't know they existed in Japan. They shouldn't. Now go look for it. She replies. All right. Hawks says and sends his feathers through the room to look for the snake. He does it for a few minutes. There's nothing here. It probably left. Then he leaves. Madam President walks back to her desk and sits down. If it weren't for the scattered papers, she would think that the king cobra was a hallucination. Turning to her screen, she prepares to get back to work, but then she freezes again, because on the screen is a text document with 5 words written on it. I know what you did. And if this isn't a threat, she doesn't know what is. Izuku is in his room reading a book when he feels Salazar coming back to his body. He looks at his right arm and finds the tattoo resting there. What have you been up to? He asks. Nothing much. Just went to visit a friend. Salazar replies. Ha! Didn't know you had other friends. Izuku mutters. Salazar just curls around his neck as Izuku goes back to his book. He'd rather not question too much. Plausible deniability and all that. It's been about 1 month since Izuku started living with Shoyuta and Hisashi. Izuku is a surprisingly easy kid to handle. The boy is very responsible and mature despite his age. He likes to spend most of his time reading or studying. That's surprising since Shoyuta also thought Izuku was a social butterfly like Hisashi, but he seems to be as much of an introvert as Shoyuta. Now that Izuku is better settled, he wants to go back to his studies and internship at the hospital. Shoyuta agrees that it's not healthy for the boy to stay locked up all the time. But this doesn't mean he's not worried. He's doing his best to keep Izuku safe. For instance, he just transferred him to a school where most legacy kids study. Most legacy children are targeted by villains, so this school was created as a protective measure for them. After some pondering, Shoyuta and Hisashi also decided it was best if they let Izuku go back to his internship. If they don't let the kid go back to healing heroes, he might start sneaking out at night to do it. It's best for him to go back to healing in a safe environment. There's only one thing Shoyuta would like to suggest. He hopes Izuku agrees. As Shoyuta enters the living room, he finds Izuku on the couch, reading as usual. This time it's a pre-Quirk era book about wizards or something. Izuku, Shoyuta calls. Izuku slides a bookmark on the page and closes the book. Then he looks up, giving Shoyuta his full attention. Hey Shoyuta, that's also progress. Izuku started calling him by his given name in the 2nd week of living with them. I'd like to start training you, Shoyuta says bluntly. He learned pretty early that the best way to talk with Izuku is by being direct. The kid doesn't like when people try to sugarcoat things. In his own words, it's a waste of time. Izuku raises an eyebrow as he puts the book away. You do remember I want to become a healer, not a hero, right? Izuku asks. Yes, I remember. Shoyuta replies. But this isn't about being a healer or hero. It's about self-defense. Izuku looks up in thought for a few seconds. Can you elaborate? He asks. Healers are always targeted by villains. Shoyuta explains. Whether it is kidnapping attempts or to eliminate you, you will be in danger. I'd feel better knowing you can defend yourself in case something happens. Izuku fiddles with the snake earring in his right ear. The tail pierces the lobule while the body skirts the rest, with the head resting on top of the helix. Izuku also has a snake-shaped ring on his left hand. These trinkets are actually trackers that Power Loader created, which constantly transmit Izuku's location to Shoyuta, Hizashi, and Nezu. They also put trackers on the soles of all his shoes. Izuku knows about them. He agreed to wear the trackers, and he's the one who chose to make the ring and earrings looking like snakes. I guess it makes sense to have all the tools possible at my disposal, Izuku says. I agree with one condition. Shoyuta nods at him to go ahead. No lethal weapons. I don't want to ever risk taking a life, even by accident. That's reasonable. Shoyuta nods. I'll be training you between school and your internship. Could you give me a copy of the schedule? And what type of training we're doing? Izuku replies. I want to make a meal plan that will help it. Shoyuta shouldn't be surprised by this response. Izuku takes his and others' health very seriously. In just a single month of living with Shoyuta and Hizashi, he completely overhauled their eating habits. Heck, it's been weeks since Shoyuta last skipped a meal. Izuku simply won't let him. That's just who he is. Sure thing, Shoyuta says, smiling fondly. We can go over the plan together. Great. I'll go grab a notebook. Izuku gets up. Oh, and don't forget to take a nap before your patrol, he says as he runs to his room. If only my hellspawn were half as responsible. Shoyuta grumbles as he sits down on the couch, already going over the training plan in his head. Shoyuta has a good eye for potential, and Izuku more than overflows it. If he wanted to become a hero, he would have no problem with that. Being a hero is not his desire, and Shoyuta respects that, but it doesn't mean he won't train him as if it were. After all, hero or healer, he's not going to let Izuku suffer again at the hands of villains. Izuku and Hizashi are visiting the park today. It was Hizashi's suggestion who thinks Izuku spends too much time indoors. He is not wrong. Izuku, in fact, prefers to spend his time indoors reading and or studying. He is far from being unhealthy, though. Izuku goes for a run every morning, usually with Hizashi, but sometimes Shoyuta accompanies him. His training with Shoyuta has also begun, and Izuku takes it very seriously. Izuku has the impression that this outing is more an attempt by Hizashi to spend some time with him than that he really thinks Izuku spends too much time indoors. As he sits under the shade of a tree with his book open, he watches the children playing with their parents with a bittersweet smile. He remembers the times he used to come to this very park with his mother. They would play pass the ball to each other for hours until Izuku could hardly walk. And then, at the end of the day when he was falling asleep, his mom would carry him on her back home. Looking to the side, he sees Hizashi looking at him with a worried expression. Izuku puts his book down around. Salazar had run away somewhere the moment they got to the park. He's probably in the trees trying to hunt some squirrels or something. As long as he doesn't cause panic, Izuku doesn't mind letting the snake do his own thing. Although it is a peculiarity of Izuku, Salazar is pretty much his own individual, so Izuku likes to give him his independence. Looking at Hizashi, Izuku smiles. Hey Zashi, wanna play ball? He asks. Hizashi's smile is so large that, for a moment, Izuku fears that his mouth will tear up and he will have to heal it. Sure thing, little listener, Hizashi says. Salazar watches from the top of the tree as Izuku and Hizashi play together. After all, he has been through. Seeing the boy enjoying himself and so carefree makes Salazar immensely happy. Nodding at the scene, Salazar goes back to his target, a small squirrel in this tree. He slithers towards it very slowly. Making sure no one can see him, he changes into a boomslang snake, which is his favorite form and the one he considers the most him. Salazar is about to strike when yelling scares the squirrel, who runs away. He huffs in annoyance and looks around, trying to see who yelled. His eyes catch a group of kids about the same age as Izuku running into an alley. He also detects someone wounded there, and this doesn't paint a good picture. Changing forms again, Salazar becomes a Barbados thread snake, which due to its very small size, allows him to move without worrying about causing panic. He slithers to the alley, where he saw the kids running, and what he sees makes him very mad. A group of about 7 kids is kicking an 8th one who's on the floor, curled on themselves and trying to protect their face and stomach. Salazar can't make much of the kid other than the purple hair and something on his face. He doesn't know what is happening. But from the way the bullies are calling the kid on the floor a villain, Salazar can only imagine it's a case of Quirk discrimination. Salazar focuses on his mental link with Izuku. Izuku, I need you and Hisashi, he sends. Wounded kid. Severe bullying. I can feel at least a broken rib. I'm on my way. Izuku's response is immediate. The bullies are still beating the kid. Can I scare them? Salazar asks. Fine, but be careful, Izuku replies, and try to be discreet. Salazar changes form again, this time turning into a Japanese tiger keelback, a very dangerous snake that he's sure anyone will recognize. Then he approaches and starts hissing. Snake! One of the kids screams. The panic is immediate. All of the bullies scramble away from the kid on the floor and run away. Salazar tries not to see that the fact that they left the boy on the floor with a very venomous snake close. Little bastards. Instead, he approaches the kid, who looks at him with wide eyes. He's trembling from fear, but since Izuku is the only one who can hear Salazar, he can't do much about it. It seems he's too wounded to walk or even try to crawl away, so instead, he closes his eyes in what Salazar assumes is an attempt at playing dead. Well, this is actually a great chance for Salazar to assess the damage. 2 broken ribs, a broken ankle, several bruises, a concussion, thankfully no internal bleeding. There's some kind of metal mask on his face. The mask is clearly too tight, as Salazar can feel it's cutting the boy's face. The boy is too skinny and has eye bags that make it seem like he hasn't slept in days. Salazar. He hears Izuku calling and turns to him. The kid runs to them and kneels down in front of the kid. Hisashi approaches and immediately frowns at the sight. Hey, hold on. We'll help you. Izuku reaches for Salazar, who quickly climbs his arm before vanishing into Izuku's skin. Salazar quickly relays everything he accessed. Izuku nods and very slowly reaches for the kid, who closes his eyes in fear. Hey, don't worry. I won't hurt you, Izuku says in a gentle tone. He inspects the mask and frowns. I can't believe there are still people muzzling kids. That's illegal. He looks at Hisashi, who nods and starts working on removing the mask. Don't worry, little listener. I've dealt with muzzles before, Hisashi says. You'll be out of this in just a second. Before starting, Izuku pulls out his phone and takes a photo of the boy, no doubt for evidence later. Then he puts a hand over the kid's chest, and they start healing his wounds. This kind of wound is very easy to heal, so by the time Hisashi finishes taking the mask off the boy's face, he's already completely healed. Izuku takes another picture of the boy's face, then puts his hand on the boy's cheeks and heals the cuts on his face as well. How do you feel? Izuku asks. Are you still in pain? The boy looks dumbfounded at Izuku before shaking his head. That's good to hear, Hisashi says. Now, little listener, could you tell us what happened? You won't believe me, the kid mutters. I think we will, Izuku says. Salazar, that's the snake's name, saw everything and told me. From what I can gather, I'm assuming a bunch of Quirkus kids cornered you. I have a villain's quirk, the boy says, looking down. No, you don't, Izuku replies. There's no villainous quirk. That's bullshit. He's right, little listener, Hisashi says. My husband has a so-called villainous quirk, and I've been muzzled before. This is just bullshit that bigoted people make to justify their hate. Hitoshi looks at Hisashi for a few moments. Then his eyes sparkle in recognition. "Present Mike?" he asks. "Well, you're the second person who recognizes me out of costume." Hisashi laughs. "What's your name?" Izuku asks. "Shinso Hitoshi." The boy replies. "Well, Shinso, I'm Midoriya Izuku." Izuku says, "This is Salazar." He raises his arm, and Salazar materializes his head, giving the kid a nod. "And I'm Yamada Hisashi." Hisashi says, "Now, could you tell us where you live?" "Here," Hitoshi says, pointing a bit ahead, where they see a makeshift bed. "My foster family kicked me out a few days ago. They said they don't want a villain in their house." "Is that so?" Hisashi says in a lower tone. "And what foster home was that? Are they the ones who muzzled you?" Hitoshi nods. "Zashi," Izuku says, looking down. "This is my new brother. He's not going back to that place." "You took the words right out of my mouth, Aizu," Hisashi says. "Gather your things, Shinso. You're coming with us." Shinso blinks at them a few times before nodding. "I don't think this is how things work, but sure." He walks to a cardboard box and pulls out a small bag. "Everything important I have is already here." Izuku and Hisashi exchange glances that say everything that needs to be said. Shinso better be prepared to be spoiled. Those two won't take no for an answer. Salazar can say for sure that his life is about to get a lot more interesting. Chapter 8. Hitoshi fits into the family like a piece of a puzzle. It's like he was always meant to be there. Hitoshi is, by all accounts, a mini Shoyuta. His mannerisms, his love of coffee, cats, and napping, his hatred of early rising. Well, Izuku's new brother is also a sarcastic, snarky, super funny jerk. This part, at least, isn't like Shoyuta, who seems to be allergic to the word humor. For the first weeks since the fostering started, Hitoshi was very insecure about everything. He refused to ask questions and, some days, even to talk. Izuku got a JSL book just so he could learn to communicate with his brother on days he's nonverbal. It took a while, but after Shoyuta got home one day telling about how Hitoshi's old foster parents were arrested for child abuse, abandonment, and quirk discrimination, Hitoshi finally accepted that they didn't care about his quirk. After that, he finally admitted that he wanted to be a hero, and since then, he has started training with Izuku and Shoyuta. And Shoyuta is just as ruthless as he is with Izuku. No, scratch that. Shoyuta is more ruthless with Hitoshi since he actually wants to become a hero. Their first session ended up with Hitoshi spread on the floor with all his muscles aching while Izuku healed him. "Is he always like this?" Hitoshi asked him that day. "Well, Shoyuta is very strict in his training," Izuku explained. "But he's going harder on you since you want to be a hero." "You don't?" Hitoshi asked. "I thought you were training to be a hero too." "Nah, I want to be a healer," Izuku said, smiling. "I never wanted to be a hero." "Then why are you training in combat?" Hitoshi asked, genuinely confused. "Healers are prime targets for villains," Izuku explained. "I've already been kidnapped once. The villain killed my mom and held me for 10 days. If not for my quirk, I'd be covered in scars." After this conversation, Hitoshi became oddly protective of Izuku. Not that Izuku minds. He always wanted an older brother. In the past, Kaken filled this hole, but everyone knows what happened. Despite being 2 weeks older, Izuku has a few months of training ahead of Hitoshi, and thus he's a lot more advanced than him in training. Not to mention that when Hitoshi started training, he was very scrawny and malnourished. Since then, he has put on some muscle, but it's clear that his build will always be more on the lean side. Today, they are sparring, which basically ends up with Hitoshi tasting the mat most of the time. "Too slow, Toshi." Izuku grins as he hops in place. Hitoshi glares at him and gets up, setting back into a fighting stance. He runs at Izuku and throws a punch, which hits Izuku in the cheek just as he hops. Izuku throws his weight back as he feels the punch, which sends him backwards. "Ha! Gotcha!" Hitoshi cheers, but his happiness is short-lived as Izuku immediately sweeps his feet and pins him to the floor. "What the hell?" How? There's not even a bruise on Izuku's cheek. Hitoshi punched him with all his might. It should have hurt. Wasn't this supposed to be quirkless sparring? I didn't use my quirk, Toshi. Izuku grins and points to the side where Salazar is curled around Shuta's neck. He extends his hand to help Hitoshi up. Wanna try again? Hitoshi gets up and prepares again. This time he throws a kick at Izuku's chest, and just like before, Izuku throws his weight back and lets the kick push him instead of trying to block. He falls to the ground and immediately gets up again, moving his arms in a circular and almost hypnotizing pattern. Have you already mastered this? Shoyuta asks as he steps on the mat. Not completely, Izuku replies, but I'm very close. Okay, can anyone explain to me? Hitoshi asks. This is defensive Shaori, Izuku explains. Basically, I relax my muscles completely, which allows me to present zero resistance to oncoming blows. It's also a technique that most people can't master even after decades of training, Shoyuta says, and the problem child almost mastered after a few months. What can I say? Izuku shrugs. Relaxing just feels natural, and this is probably the best technique for me. After all, most of the time, if I end up in a fight, I'll be only trying to gain time, not win. You still need something for the offensive, Shoyuta says, but we can work on it later. That's enough for now. As Shoyuta walks away, Izuku notices Hitoshi looking at him. Nope, this won't work for you, Toshi, Izuku says. Shaori needs you to relax completely as a punch flies to your face. Yeah, I figured it out, Hitoshi sighs. Still, do you have any tips? Well, you should ask Shoyuta to teach you how to use his scarf, Izuku suggests. You two have practically the same style and similar builds. Not a bad idea. I'll try, Hitoshi replies. Hitoshi walks home from school. Due to how Izuku is constantly at risk of being targeted by villains and the bullying and discrimination in Hitoshi's old school, Aizawa and Yamada opted to transfer both to a special school, where lots of legacy kids are enrolled. Hitoshi can't say he really likes his classmates. Most are conceited brats with strong quirks who think they are better than everyone because their parents are heroes. But at least this school enforces its anti-bullying policy, so it's already heaven compared to his old one. And the teachers are respectful as well. Anyway, after school, Izuku has his internship at the hospital, and Yamada is driving him there. Hitoshi could have hitched a ride with them, but he prefers to walk home. And it is on the way that he hears muffled meows coming from an alley. He pauses for just a second before checking it out. Come on, it's a cat. He can't ignore it. Following the meows, which seem quite desperate, Hitoshi finds a sealed cardboard box. The meows are coming from inside, and the box doesn't even have air holes. Taking a deep breath, Hitoshi pulls the tape from the box and opens it. His heart breaks as he sees what's inside. 7 kittens are inside the box, which is definitely too small for them. 6 of them are dead. The 7th is the one meowing. This kitten, a ragdoll with green and brown fur, is barely moving. How can someone be that cruel? Hitoshi isn't religious, but he's sure there's a place in hell reserved for the monsters who hurt innocent animals. Without a second thought, Hitoshi gently takes the kitten in his arms and begins to run. There is a vet on the way home. It only takes a few minutes for him to get to the vet, and someone immediately starts looking over the cat. Meanwhile, Hitoshi grabs his phone and calls Aizawa. The call barely rings once before Aizawa answers. Hitoshi? Something happened? Are you okay? He asks. I'm fine, Hitoshi replies. I was walking home when I found a sealed box, he explains, taking a deep breath. I found 6 dead kittens and 1 barely alive. I'm at the vet. The call is silent for a few seconds. The 1 2 blocks from home? Hitoshi hums in confirmation. I'm on my way. Aizawa is barging through the vet's doors barely 10 minutes after he hangs the call. He makes his way to Hitoshi. Hey! Hitoshi mutters sadly. He can't take his eyes away from the door the vet brought the kitten. They are treating the kitten. It's going to be okay, Aizawa says. You did your best. How could someone do this? Hitoshi asks no one in particular. Hitoshi knows Aizawa isn't good with words. Instead, The man wraps an arm around his shoulders and pulls him in a side hug as the two wait for news. Takes about 10 minutes until the vet comes back. As she sees Hitoshi, she gives him a smile. "That lady is a true warrior," she says. "She's a little malnourished and dehydrated. She was probably not being fed even before she was put in the box." Hitoshi growls at the thought. "But will she be okay?" he asks. "Yes, she'll make a full recovery," the vet replies. Both Hitoshi and Aizawa sigh in relief. "That's good to hear," Hitoshi replies. "Can we see her?" "No problem." The vet brings the kitten. She still looks weak, but she's breathing much easier now. Hitoshi approaches his hand, and the kitten immediately licks it. He can't help the smile on his face as he rubs her belly. "You are very strong, aren't you?" Hitoshi asks. The kitten meows softly, and her fur starts glowing. Flowers start blooming on her fur. "How rare," the vet says. "I guess this explains how she survived. But her siblings didn't. Quirked animals are naturally more resistant and smarter. They also live a lot longer than regular animals." "Makes sense," Aizawa mutters. "I have no idea how old Nedzu is, but he's older than any member of his staff, except maybe Chio." Hitoshi isn't paying much attention. His gaze is fixated on the kitten nuzzling his hand and purring. "Persephone," he mutters, smiling. There's no denying he's already attached. But would Aizawa and Yamada agree to bring her home? What about Izuku? Would Salazar have a problem with a cat? He glances briefly at Aizawa, and to his surprise, the man smiles and puts a hand on his shoulder. "We can pass by a pet shop," Aizawa says. "There's a lot of things we need to buy for a kitten. She has already been weaned, but you should start giving her soft food and slowly transition into solids." The vet instructs. "I suggest you bring her back in a month for a follow-up examination." "Thank you," Hitoshi says, bowing to the vet. Then he scoops Persephone in his arms and plants a kiss on her head. "Ready to go home, Seph?" The kitten meows softly and snuggles in Hitoshi's chest. Hitoshi can't stop the smile from slipping on his face. But it's okay, when it comes to cats, he'll be the first one to admit he's soft. Izuku glares at Shoyuta with a very unimpressed look on his face. Shoyuta maintains eye contact. He will not look away first. He refuses to be intimidated by an 11-year-old. Eventually, Izuku sighs and looks down at the clipboard in his hands. "So, 3 stabs, a bruised rib, and a concussion," Izuku says and looks back at Shoyuta. "Anything to say in your defense?" "Nothing is broken this time," Shoyuta says weakly. "Nothing is broken. Nothing is broken," he says. Izuku says, his voice raising as he throws his hands in the air. "For God's sake, can you stop jumping into fights alone? Hell, maybe you should be called Daredevil instead of Eraserhead." "Stop yelling. I'm not deaf," Shoyuta replies. "Could have fooled me," Izuku grumbles. "And if you think I'm yelling, be glad you can't hear Salazar. Now be quiet while I heal you. Don't make me put you to sleep again." "I don't need dash." "Screw it," Izuku says and puts his left hand on Shuta's cheek. "Nap time, idiot." Almost immediately, Shoyuta passes out. Izuku is in the living room reading a book when he sees a blur rushing under the couch. A few seconds later, Persephone is there trying to reach whatever that is. "Aizu! Aizu!" Salazar calls, sounding a bit desperate. "Save me, Aizu! This beast wants to eat me." Izuku blinks a few times and looks at the kitten who's trying to reach under the couch with her paws while Salazar hisses at her. "Are you really afraid of her, Salazar?" Izuku asks. "It's just a kitten." "A beast is what this is," Salazar replies. "Get her away from me." Izuku just laughs and reaches down, pulling the kitten in his lap. "It's okay. You can leave now," Izuku says. He goes back to his book while he scratches behind Sepha's ear. The kitten starts purring. "Thank God," Salazar says before curling around Izuku's legs. A few seconds later, he enters Izuku and goes back to his right hand. Seph carefully watches the tattoo moving up Izuku's arm and tries to paw at it. Izuku can see it's more out of curiosity than anything else. He hopes Seth and Salazar can get along. See? She's harmless, Izuku says. No, she's not, Salazar replies. She's trying to kill me. And you say Shoyuta is dramatic, Izuku laughs. Salazar watches intently from under the couch. No sign of the beast. It should be safe to leave. He doesn't understand how Izuku can be so calm around this creature. Can't he see the hungry look in her eyes? Salazar is sure if she catches him, he's done. Slowly slithering out from under the couch, he takes one more look around. Nothing on the left, nothing on the right. He moves fully out. The only place left is… Meow! Salazar freezes and slowly raises his head. The beast is sitting on the couch, looking at him with her hungry eyes. She jumps down, standing between Salazar and the only safe haven he has. Salazar screams and starts slithering away as fast as he can. Why did he have to be a snake? Couldn't he be an animal with legs instead? Like the predator she obviously is, the beast chases him. Salazar slithers as fast as he can. Luckily for him, the beast is still small enough that she can't keep up with him with her short legs. Salazar manages to dodge her with the help of the dining table, and so he makes his way back under the couch. At this rate, the only safe place will be in Izuku's skin. He can feel something landing on the couch, which means she's back in her spot and will be waiting for him. Great. Sighing, Salazar curls around and waits. She has to give up at some point, right? Salazar closes his eyes and decides to nap. Under the couch is actually a nice spot for a nap. Salazar wakes up a few minutes later to a cry. He looks around and detects a twisted paw and distressed meows. Leaving his hiding spot, he finds the beast on the floor near the tall dining table. She probably tried to jump and landed wrong. The twisting is not bad, but she's clearly in pain. Salazar approaches her, but there's not much he can do for now. Izuku and Hitoshi are at school. Hizashi and Shoyuta are at UA, teaching. The only reason Salazar stayed home was because Izuku asked him to keep an eye on her. He can't heal without Izuku. There's only one thing he can do. Salazar takes a bigger form and carefully holds her in his mouth, pulling her back to the coach, being mindful of her hurt leg. He climbs up and puts her down, curling protectively around her. He has to admit she's warm. Salazar rests his head above her neck in what he hopes is a comforting manner. Well, it might be since she licks him. Maybe this beast isn't so bad. A few minutes later, he can feel himself falling asleep again. A few hours later, Salazar wakes up to the sound of a camera and looks up to see Izuku grinning and pointing his phone at him. He's still cuddling with Persephone. Shut up. She's warm, Salazar says. And she hurt her paw. Izuku nods and sits down, gently scooping Seth in his hands. Salazar climbs at his arm, and the two quickly heal her. Once again, Seth stares at the tattoo on the back of Izuku's hand, but instead of pawing at him, this time, she licks him. Yeah, maybe this beast isn't so bad after all. Chapter 9. Chapter text. Let it be known that Izuku does not like having to heal heroes. Not that he doesn't enjoy his job as a healer. Nothing gives him more satisfaction than saving a life. However, a situation where he is needed means that a hero has been injured. Izuku would love it if fewer heroes visited them daily with broken bones, stab wounds, concussions, and other injuries. Izuku loves being a healer, but he really wishes his work wasn't required. Keeping this in mind, what a boring day. A few days ago, there was an accident with a student's Quirk at the school, and as a result, the school is closed for a few days. Izuku convinced his parents and the person in charge of his internship to let him spend those days in the hospital. Most of those days have been quite productive. Keyword: most. Today, specifically, is a particularly quiet day. There has not been a single emergency all morning. Most of the nurses have enough free time to be able to gossip. The attendant in the lobby is deep in some magazine Izuku doesn't know. Even the doctors who are usually running around have nothing to do. Izuku is bored since the only thing he has to do is scroll on his cell phone. Again, he won't complain about no heroes getting hurt today, but he would definitely like something to do at the moment. Almost like an answer to his prayers, the hospital director, Gekatakuya-san, enters the emergency room with a phone to his ear. He immediately scans the room until his eyes stop on Izuku, and he gestures for him to come closer. Without wasting any time, Izuku promptly stands up from his seat, slipping his phone into his pocket, and follows the hospital director. Gekko-san leads Izuku to his office, still keeping the phone to his ear. "Close the door behind you, please," Gekko-san requests as he settles behind his desk, gesturing to the chair opposite him. "What do you need, Gekko-san?" Izuku asks politely but directly, a trait shared by everyone in the hospital. Pleasantries are a waste of time that could be used to save more lives. Gekko-san signals Izuku to wait a moment and continues his conversation with whoever is on the phone. After exchanging a few more words, he hangs up and places the phone down. "Sorry about that, Midoriya-kun," Gekko-san smiles. "I just got a call from Principal Nedzu at UA. Today, UA is holding the Hero Course final exams for the first year. As you can imagine, this event often results in several injured students. I heard Recovery Girl is always swamped this time of the year." Izuku nods. "Did something happen?" "Well, not even healers are immune to the flu, you know?" Gekko-san chuckles. Izuku doesn't really know. He never got sick. She's fine, but she can't make it. And UA can't hold its final exams without a healer on standby. Nedzu-san called and asked if we could lend them a healer for today. And the only healers we have here are Miyuki-san and me. Izuku summarizes. "But I'm just an intern, sir." "And yet you have more experience under your belt than half my staff," Gekko-san replies. "We both know the only reason you don't have your healer license yet is because the law requires you to be at least 16 for that. Law also states that I can't heal people with supervision." Izuku points. "And you'll have," Gekko-san counters confidently. "Pro heroes are allowed to supervise healers in training as long as they have the approval of a senior. Something you have from every single member of the staff here, Midoriya." Izuku contemplated the proposition for a moment. "Are you sure about this, sir?" he asks. "You're putting a lot of trust in me. You heal life-threatening wounds on a daily basis, Midoriya-kun." Gekko-san laughs warmly. "Dealing with a bunch of students won't be a problem for you. The worst that tends to happen in those cases is a few broken bones. You'll be fine, and I trust you." "That's not the problem," Izuku replies. "I don't doubt my skills. But I'm still a 13-year-old boy, you know? People will doubt my skills." "So," Gekko-san replies, "let people talk. As long as you're doing your job right, no one can complain. We aren't doing anything illegal." Izuku pauses for a moment, glancing at his right hand, where Salazar's head rests, the rest of the snake tattoo wrapped around his arm. "What do you think, Salazar?" he asks quietly. The snake tattoo materializes its head, lifting it to look at Izuku. "I agree with him, Izu," the snake replies in Izuku's mind. With newfound confidence, Izuku turns his gaze back to the director. "I accept, sir." He nods, determination in his eyes. "But why did you ask me and not Miyuki-san?" "Oh, 2 reasons." The director chuckles. "Miyuki-san is not good with teenagers, as you remember what happened last week, right?" Izuku winces at the memory and nods. "And second, I thought you would like the chance to watch UA's final exams, Mr. Hero fanboy." Embarrassed, Izuku blushed and looked away, but he couldn't deny his excitement. He nodded shyly, still feeling a rush of joy at the prospect of being present at UA, even if it was in a professional capacity. "Thank you, sir," Izuku bows politely, "for the opportunity and for trusting me." "Don't worry about it," Gekko-san waves him off. "Now, your ride will be here in 10 minutes, so I recommend you go get whatever you need to." "Yes, sir," Izuku replies and jumps off the chair, rushing to the exit. With his resolve strengthened, Izuku gathers his medical supplies and essentials, preparing for the day's assignment at UA. It doesn't take much longer for a car to stop in front of the hospital, and Izuku is greeted by Pro Hero Ectoplasm. As they make their way to UA, Izuku can't help but feel a mix of nerves and excitement. It's a rare opportunity to observe the Hero Course final exams up close. His excitement is the only thing that stops him from bombarding Ectoplasm with 1,000 questions about his quirk. However, there's one question he can't hold back. Are you a clone? Izuku asks the hero, curiosity evident in his voice. I left clones at UA, but my clones aren't allowed to drive in case something happens. Ectoplasm replies, I'm the original. The answer makes sense to Izuku. If something were to happen and the clone disappeared while driving, the results could be dangerous. He's impressed by the hero's foresight. However, this brings up another question in his mind. Wait, your clones have no distance limit? Izuku asks in surprise. That's right. Ectoplasm nods. The clone is created wherever I am, but I don't have a limit on how far apart I can be from my clones. They will only be dispelled if I want, or they receive a strong blow. That's incredible, Izuku remarks. To have clones with no distance limit. It must be an amazing advantage in battle. Ectoplasm smiles, clearly pleased with the young healer's enthusiasm. It does come in handy, he agrees. Having multiple clones allows me to cover more ground and handle various situations simultaneously. But it comes with its challenges too. Controlling all of them requires intense focus and experience. Izuku's hand twitches with the urge to grab his notebook and start writing down everything he's hearing about the hero's quirk. But before he can, Ectoplasm is already pulling the car over to UA's parking lot. Izuku will just have to remember what Ectoplasm told him so he can write it later. Following Ectoplasm, Izuku soon arrives at the imposing gates of UA. Right in front of them stands a very familiar hero in a black jumpsuit and a gray scarf. And it doesn't take long for his dad to notice Izuku approaching. Problem child. Shoyuta sighs as Izuku approaches. So, you're the healer Nedzu called and neglected to tell me about. At least I'm not healing you this time, Izuku teases, glancing down at Salazar. Right? No hidden injuries, the snake says, narrowing his eyes at Shoyuta. This time. Good. Izuku nods, satisfied, and then turns to Shoyuta, enveloping him in a warm hug. Hi, Dad. Shoyuta huffs but can't hide the faint smile that tugs at his lips as he ruffles Izuku's hair in amusement. You make it sound like it's been weeks since we've seen each other. I saw you just this morning. Don't care. I missed you, Izuku replies, pulling away from the hug. Anyway, I'm here for work. Yeah, I know. Follow me, Shoyuta says, leading the way. The practicals will start in 1 hour, so you have this time to set everything you need. Recovery Girl keeps everything organized. All right, Izuku nods and follows Shoyuta. Shoyuta guides them to a giant mock city where Izuku can see a few teachers setting something up. Of course, Izuku recognizes the man tinkering with the robots while Ectoplasm's clones bring him tools and components. Izuku would recognize Power Loader anywhere in the world. Then there's also 13, the rescue hero, and Hound Dog talking not far from there. Izuku can't see his papa anywhere, though. Maybe he's not part of this exam? Shudakuen, an excited voice calls out, and Shoyuta groans in annoyance. Izuku turns around and sees Principal Nedzu approaching them with a big smile on his animalistic face. Nedzu, Shoyuta greets, his tone slightly exasperated. Didn't you think it was important to warn me that you asked my son to sub for Recovery Girl? Oh, but you see, Shudakuen, I just asked Gekakuen for a healer. I never said it had to be Midoriya-kun. Nedzu replies mischievously. Don't give me that bullshit, Nedzu. Shoyuta grumbles. You knew exactly that they would have sent Izuku. I don't mind. Izuku is already one of, if not the best healer in Japan. But a heads up would have been nice. Chuckling softly at the playful banter between the two adults, Izuku appreciates Shuta's protectiveness, even if he knows he's more than capable of handling the responsibility. Shoyuta has always struck the right balance, never suffocatingly so, allowing Izuku his space and independence, just like his mother did when she was alive. Izuku often wonders if Shoyuta truly understands how much he appreciates this aspect of their relationship. Sorry, Dad. Izuku chimes in. I didn't know they would ask me until Gekka-san told me earlier today. Shoyuta sighs but gives Izuku a fond look. It's not your fault, Izuku. Just make sure you're prepared for anything during the practicals. Those kids can be a handful. Don't let anyone push you around. I will, Dad. Izuku promises earnestly, feeling a surge of determination. And you know you don't have to worry, he adds, putting on a feral grin. Izuku nods and quickly enters the tent designated as the medical station for the practical exams. He expected a makeshift setup, but to his delight, he found a well-equipped and organized space. It's clear that no expenses were spared to ensure the students' health and safety. Adjustable LED lights provide ample illumination without causing discomfort, and there's a series of well-marked beds or cots, each adorned with fresh linens and blankets. Excitedly, Izuku begins to inspect the shelves and cabinets, neatly stocked with a wide array of medical supplies and equipment. He carefully examines each section, appreciating the attention to detail in the arrangement. The first cabinet holds essentials like bandages, gauze pads, adhesive tape, antiseptic wipes, and disinfectants for minor cuts and wounds. Moving on to the next one, he discovers sterile dressings, tourniquets, hemostatic agents, and splints, indicating preparedness for more severe injuries. Another section is dedicated to managing dehydration and administering medications, with 4 catheters, saline bags, and administration sets ready for use. A well-organized medication station catches Izuku's eye, featuring essential drugs for pain relief, fever management, and common medical conditions. He finds all the necessary tools for assessment and diagnosis, such as stethoscopes, blood pressure cuffs, thermometers, and otoscopes. Tweezers, scissors, and forceps are neatly arranged for minor procedures and wound care. And, of course, the sanitization supplies are present, essential in maintaining a sterile environment. Besides the medical supplies, Izuku notices a desk with clipboards and forms, ready to document any injuries the students might suffer. It's evident that Principal Nedzu prioritizes the well-being of his students, and Izuku finds immense respect for all the preparation. Though the place is already quite clean, Izuku adheres to the protocol, taking the initiative to prepare the sanitizing materials. Swiftly, he cleans every corner of the tent, ensuring not a single speck of dust remains. He meticulously mops the floor, wipes down all tables and high-touch surfaces, sterilizes every piece of equipment, and changes all the linens, just in case. Satisfied with the thoroughness of his work, Izuku inspects each part of the medical station 3 more times. He wants to be absolutely certain that everything is pristine and ready for anything that might happen. Just as he's discarding the gloves he used while cleaning, he hears footsteps outside, and Hizashi puts his head inside. He is about to say something but is distracted by the glistening tent floor and the smell of antiseptic. "Wow, and I thought Chio was meticulous with her cleaning," he mutters in awe. "Hey Papa, need something?" Izuku asks. "Oh right." Hizashi shakes his head. "The exams are about to start. Nedzu wants to introduce you to the students." Izuku nods and follows Hizashi outside. He finds the same teachers he saw before he entered the tent, but this time Nedzu is on Shuta's shoulder. The scene is amusing and adorable. Not far from them, Izuku sees the hero students all wearing their hero costumes. Though making a head count, he finds only 16 students. Shouldn't there be 20? Izuku wonders aloud. Eraserhead expelled for students, Hizashi explains, and Izuku nods. He knows how seriously Shoyuta takes heroics, so if he expelled someone, he's sure he had good reasons. "Who's the kid?" A cheerful girl with long blue hair and blue eyes asks. Her hair is styled in a way that kinda reminds Izuku of horns. Izuku can feel all eyes fall on him, and he almost hides behind Hizashi in surprise. But he controls the urge and stands tall and proudly. "Allow me to introduce Midoriya Aizawa Izuku," Nedzu says with a grin. "Recovery girl caught the flu and won't be able to help us today, but that's okay. Izuku-kun will be subbing her today." There are mixed reactions from the students. A few seem excited as they look at him, others worried. And there's one specific boy who's looking at Izuku with clear disdain. Izuku ignores it and takes a step forward. "As Nedzu-san introduced me, I'm Midoriya Aizawa Izuku." He extends his hand, and Salazar materializes. "And this is Salazar. We'll be your healers today. It will be a pleasure to work with you," he politely says as the snake slithers along his arm and curls around his neck. "God, Tamaki, he's so adorable," the same blue-haired girl says while shaking her indigo-haired friend, who seems on the brink of a panic attack. How old are you? Someone else asks. I'm 13 years old, Izuku replies, but I've been healing people since I was 5. This part seems to impress most of them. The students seem to want to ask more questions, but before they can, Shoyuta steps ahead and starts talking. Let's stop wasting time, he says. As some of you might have heard, you'll be fighting robots today. But don't think it'll be easy. Those robots are much stronger than the ones in the entrance exam. And unlike there, your objective isn't to destroy them. He gives the students his logical ruse grin. You will be separated into pairs and have 2 objectives. The city is filled with villains, and there are 5 hostages you must rescue and bring to safety. Your grade will depend on how many you safely rescue. But remember, everything is being graded. A few students grumble at it, but Shoyuta is undeterred and keeps talking. Also, the city is full of villains that you'll have to fight. But as heroes, you are expected to show restraint. Shoyuta continues. Heroes can't just kill the villains, after all. Nedzu chirps. Each time one of you kills a villain, you'll have points docked from your final grade. Shoyuta continues. In contrast, a clean, non-lethal takedown will earn you extra points. The exam ends when all 5 hostages are rescued or dead. Any questions? 16 hands shot up. Good, let's start. First duo. Chapter 10. In the spacious viewing room, Izuku sits among the teachers, his anticipation palpable as the hero course final exams are about to commence. The room is filled with hushed energy, the air charged with a mix of excitement and curiosity. Monitors of various sizes line the walls, each displaying live feeds from different testing areas. Everything is set in the best way to allow them to watch the tests. Beside him, his dad and his papa are also settled in, their expressions a complete contrast to each other. Dad seems bored, while papa is vibrating almost as much as Izuku. It's always funny to Izuku how those two are so perfect to each other when their personalities couldn't be more different. No student is in the room at the moment. The rules are clear. No student is allowed to watch the exams before their own turn, so they all go into the exam with the exact same knowledge. However, once students complete their exam, they're free to watch and support their peers. And after it, they can ask for the recording to review later. Izuku adjusts his position in his seat, his eyes fixed on the monitors as he waits for the exams to begin. He can't wait to see how the hero students will tackle the exam. He only ever gets to watch the hero course students at the sports festival, and usually that's not enough to really analyze their quirks to the extent he'd like to. But today, he already has his notebook ready. As the first duo steps forward to start the exam, Izuku's attention sharpens. Togata Mirio and Amajiki Tamaki. Amajiki seems very anxious as he walks in, while Togata is all sunshine and smiles. Beside Izuku, his papa leans in with a grin, his eyes fixed on the monitor displaying the scene. Ah, Togata and Amajiki, he says, amused. That's a dynamic duo right there. Izuku's curiosity is piqued, and he turns to his papa. Isn't Togata the boy who lost his clothes during the sports festival? He asks, a hint of amusement in his tone. Present Mike chuckles softly, his eyes still fixed on the monitors. Yeah, that's him, he replies, his voice carrying a fond undertone. He's quite the character, but don't let his demeanor fool you. He's pretty good. I'm sure Dad wouldn't have let him stay if he wasn't. Izuku replies with a smirk. You've got that right. Your old man knows how to spot potential. His papa nods in agreement, a proud expression crossing his features. You're older than me, Dad mutters. And it's starting, pay attention. Izuku's eyes instantly snap to the screen as Togata and Amajiki start traversing the mock city. So, how many logical ruses did you put in this test? Izuku asks, smirking at his dad. I think I caught 2. You clearly implied that rescue is the priority, as it should always be, but you never said how many points are docked by killing a villain. Or how much will be docked if they lose a victim. What do you think? Dad asks with a playful grin. A challenge, it seems. Izuku's grin mirrors his dad's, and he returns his gaze to the screen. The ongoing exam holds his attention as he starts to dissect the layers of the test in his mind. In real life, Killing a villain is grounds to lose your license depending on how bad it was and if it could have been avoided. Izuku starts one of his mutter storms as he thinks aloud. But to use the same weight here would be cruel to first years. So, I assume there's a strike system here. 3 villains killed would be an automatic fail. His mind works quickly, piecing together the puzzle. Then we have the victims. 5 hostages. If rescuing all 5 successfully will give the students full marks, then each one is worth 20 points. Capturing the villains is optional. Dad said it would give them extra points, so it could act as a safety net in case someone messes up. But then, oh, I think I get it. Izuku's grin widens as he looks back at his dad, satisfaction evident in his eyes. Oh, tell me, Dad replies, his own grin tinged with amusement. The villains are worth very little, right? Izuku continues, his voice animated as he explains his deductions. 1 or 2 extra points at most. You want to see if the students will prioritize rescue. His gaze is intent on his dad, analyzing every micro-expression. As for the hostages, losing one doesn't only mean they won't get those points, but they'll also lose points depending on how badly they messed up. Am I right, Dad? Dad chuckles and ruffles Izuku's hair affectionately. You're right, little listener, Para says with a proud smile. It's always interesting to see this big brain of yours at work. Izuku's chest swells with pride at their words, his focus shifting back to the screen that showcases the unfolding exam. That's a pretty brutal test, Izuku remarks, his tone a mix of observation and admiration. Aren't they just first years? That's the point, Dad responds sagely. Most first years start growing complacent by this time of the year. This test is a way for them to experience failure in a controlled environment. And the test might be brutal, but it's not unfair. Papa adds his own insights, joining the conversation. The students who truly grasp the objective of the exam will have no trouble passing. So, the entire exam is actually one big logical ruse? Izuku asks, tilting his head. We have to keep those kids on their toes. Dad replies with one of his sadistic grins. Izuku chuckles softly at the playful explanation before nodding in agreement, his attention returning to the screen where the exam is in full swing. Well, it seems like we're off to a good start, Izuku notes, his finger pointing at the screen where Amajiki and Togata are carefully navigating the mock city while keeping to the alleys. Mirio's permeation allows him to check inside buildings for the hostages, while Amajiki has his hands transformed into big crab pincers, perfect to grab hold of a villain in case they are seen. A very solid strategy. They soon find the first hostage. Who are those? Izuku asks as he sees the woman playing hostage. Actors, his papa explains. Nedzu hired them from the Help Us company. They're experts at simulating victim scenarios, and their involvement adds an extra layer of realism to the rescue simulations. I heard of them, Izuku hums. And I know hiring the HUC doesn't come cheap. Nedzu is the embodiment of go big or go home, or in his case, go realistic or don't bother. Dad says, the rat simply doesn't know what the word economy means. I'm sure the students appreciate it, Izuku says with a light smile. But his expression shifts when a villain bot shoots a hostage after Togata accidentally alerts it by knocking over a trash can. The red ink running down her head has an uncanny resemblance to real blood. Or maybe not, Izuku adds with a frown on his face. Izuku observes as Togata stands there, shocked at what happened. For a moment, he seems to have forgotten this was a test. The only reason he's not knocked out by the villain bot is because Amajiki tackles the robot out of the way before pulling Togata out of the way. His glance goes back to the hostage actress who lies on the floor with red ink on her head. He knows it's just red ink. He really knows, but as he sees it, memories come back to his mind. Nothing personal, lady, a mocking voice said. A gun pointed at the green-haired woman on the floor. I'm just doing what I was paid to do. Then 5 shots echoed in the dark alley, and Izuku could only stare in shock as the man dragged him away. Before he can spiral further into the past, strong yet gentle hands cover his eyes, pulling him closer. His papa's voice reaches his ears, grounding him in the present. Hey, little listener, it's okay. It's all fake. See, his papa points at the screen, where the actress gets up after Togata and Amajiki have moved on. She's cleaning the fake blood off her face, a visible reminder that it's all just a staged scenario. Do you want to take a break? Papa offers, concern lacing his voice. Izuku shakes his head and leans into his papa's chest, drawing strength from their closeness. It's okay, just memories, he reassures, his voice steady as he calms down. Okay, tell me if that changes, Papa says, giving him a side hug. Next to him, his dad is eyeing Izuku worriedly but still giving him space. Izuku offers him a reassuring smile before looking back at the screen. So, that was bad, Izuku says, recomposing himself. How much will they lose for that one? This happened because Togata was careless. Dad explains the situation with a measured tone, dissecting the tactical error. He approached too quickly and didn't have a plan. Also, in a real-life scenario, freezing like this could cost him much more than just points. That's 15 points docked. That's harsh, Izuku says. Let's see if they can recover from this setback. Togata still seems a bit shaken. We'll need to reassure him that the woman is perfectly fine later, Papa adds. But this is also a valuable learning opportunity. As cold as it may sound, a hero can't afford to let incidents like this shake their resolve. We can't save everyone. Dad nods in agreement. But if we crumble after seeing something like this, we won't be able to save anyone. Izuku just nods, not sure of what to say about that. It's a harsh truth that he's come to understand, even if it's a difficult one to fully accept. But he vowed a long time ago to save everyone he could. Shaking his head, he looks back to the screen just in time to see Togata taking a deep breath and slapping his own face before continuing with renewed determination. Izuku can't help but smile at his resilience. Amajiki manages to safely subdue about 7 villain bots, making up for most of the docked points, while Togata escorts 2 more hostages to safety. Then they quickly locate the last hostage. If they manage to get this one to safety, they'll end up with about 79 points, right? Izuku asks. Yep, but this one will be the hardest. Papa confirms, his anticipation mirroring Izuku's. The screen shows a sudden shift in the scenario as the villain bot's eyes glow red, and they all converge on Togata and Amajiki. The last hostage has a tracker, Dad explains, his voice revealing a new layer of complexity. So, unless they figure it out and remove it, sneaking isn't an option anymore. They can't subdue so many villains, and killing is still not an option. Izuku murmurs as his mind analyzes the puzzle. This looks like an impossible situation. Where is the tracker? As if in response to his question, a blinking light catches Izuku's attention on the screen. It's located on the back of the hostage's clothing, near the collar. The red light pulses steadily, indicating the presence of the tracker. Right there, Dad points out. That's not subtle at all, Izuku says, narrowing his eyes. They can't miss it, right? Who knows? Papa shrugs. Tunnel vision is a real problem, Dad chimes in. Even the most skilled heroes can fall victim to it if they aren't careful. It's easy to focus so intensely on one aspect that you overlook something obvious. As if to prove Dad's point, Amajiki and Togata take several minutes to notice the Christmas tree blinking in the hostage's back. Eventually, it's Togata who notices the tracker. However, instead of throwing it away, he employs a clever tactic. With a mischievous grin, he sticks the tracker to his own costume and takes off running in the opposite direction. Predictably, the villain bots divert their attention and give chase, creating a clear path for Amajiki. Wow, that was smart, Izuku says before frowning as the bot catches up to Togata and starts attacking him. And reckless. In a real-life situation, he would probably end up dead. Dad nods. But for the purpose of this test, I can't deny that it was a shrewd move. Izuku sighs as he sees the bruises appearing on Togata's body, as he can't permeate through all the villain's attacks. Meanwhile, Amajiki successfully guides the hostage to safety, passing through the gate that signifies the end of the exam. Exam finished. Nedzu's voice announces through the speakers. Amajiki and Togata are approved. Well, time to get to work, Izuku says, hopping down from the chair. Who's gonna babysit me today? Me, Papa says, getting up as well with a big grin. Ready to rock, little listener? He asks, shooting finger guns at Izuku. You bet. Izuku responds with an equally enthusiastic finger gun salute of his own. Hey Salazar, ready to go. He glances down at his arm, but to his surprise, the tattoo's nowhere to be seen. Salazar. Frantically scanning the area, Izuku finally spots Salazar not too far off, hanging out with Auntie Namuri. To his surprise, Salazar seems to be trying to crack his tail like a whip. What on earth? Well, Izuku learned a long time ago it's better to not question Salazar's antics, so he just walks to the snake and calls him. Salazar, we have work to do, he says, crouching down and extending his arm for the snake to climb onto. All right, Salazar replies and wraps around Izuku's arm. Bye, Namuri. He said bye, Auntie Nem. Izuku translates for the snake. Sure thing, sweetie. Just remember what I told you. Practice makes perfect. Auntie Namuri says, petting Salazar's head. Now off you go. You've got some naughty heralings to patch up. Izuku nods briskly and hurries away, a slight shiver running down his spine. Does she ever drop the persona? He mumbles, his steps quickening as he navigates the path ahead. Izuku and his papa quickly make their way to the medical station. Izuku enters the tent just as Amajiki was helping Togata walk. Salazar curls around Izuku's neck, already setting his eyes on the patients. Hey Midoriya, right? Togata greets them with a friendly grin as they enter. Nice to meet you. I don't think I've ever been patched up by anyone other than Recovery Girl. Not a surprise. Izuku shrugs. She's got her legendary reputation for a solid reason. You seem to respect her a lot. Togata points. Every healer does. She's a legend. Izuku smiles and turns to Salazar. Diagnostic. Bruises, a few scrapes, a sprained wrist, and a cracked bone in his left foot. Nothing too dire. Salazar doesn't miss a beat. Izuku nods, then turns his attention back to Togata. Let's start with that wrist then, he says, his tone firm but reassuring. And after that, we'll move on to the cracked bone in your foot, along with taking care of those bruises and scrapes. Don't worry about it, Kohai. I'm feeling just fine. Togata attempts to assure Izuku with a grin. I didn't ask for your assessment of your peachy state. Izuku retorts, narrowing his eyes. I asked for your wrist so I can get that sprain sorted. Clear? I promise it doesn't even hurt. Togata still insists. Sure. Izuku mocks, shaking his head. You're shaping up to be every healer's nightmare. With a theatrical sigh, Izuku raises his left hand to his face, his tone exaggeratedly dramatic. I don't have the patience for this today. Nap time, idiot. He taps his fingers lightly against Togata's forehead, sapping his energy and causing the boy to collapse onto the bed, now unconscious. Good grief. Why can't people just let me do my work? Amajiki. Amajiki jumps slightly, his eyes widening as he straightens up. He seems oddly startled, and Izuku can't help but be puzzled by his reaction. Hi! Amajiki stammers out almost too quickly, as if caught off guard. Izuku raises an eyebrow, his confusion growing. Can you give me a hand setting him on the bed? He asks calmly, his tone gentle. Okay. Amajiki replies and quickly assists Izuku in placing Togata carefully on the bed. Treating Togata's injuries proves to be a breeze for Izuku, requiring minimal effort from him. In no time, he successfully heals the sprain, the cracked bone, and all the bruises, leaving Togata as good as new. Perfect, Izuku says with a contented smile, his attention shifting to Amajiki. The boy seems to straighten up nervously. Izuku still doesn't know why he seems so scared. Hi, Amajiki responds, his voice slightly shaky. I can't heal your stomach, since your problem isn't a wound, Izuku says, but you can have those. He grabs a small bag of mint leaves from a cabinet. Chewing on them will help. Togata will wake up in a few minutes. Do you want to stay with him? Amajiki nods hesitantly, accepting the bag of mint leaves from Izuku's outstretched hand. In that case, make yourself comfortable, Izuku says with a smile. It's good that he has a friend like you, but he should tone down a little on the recklessness. Emajiki nods in agreement, his demeanor respectful. He's an amazing guy, but he tends to be a bit too self-sacrificing. He adds, his voice soft but sincere. Selflessness is a great trait for a hero, but too much of anything is bad. Izuku replies, he can't save anyone if he's dead. Can I ask your hero names? I'm Sun Eater. He's Lemillion. Emajiki replies, well, Sun Eater, I'm sure you're going to be a great hero. Izuku says with a grin while getting his notebook. Can I have your autograph? I ask for it from every hero I heal. Emajiki seems too stunned to talk. He just grabs the notebook and signs it. Thank you, Izuku says with a bow. I'll ask for Lemillion's when he wakes up. It was nice to meet you, Sun Eater. I'm sure you'll be a great hero. Having said that, Izuku follows his papa back to the viewing room. He doesn't notice the soft smile on Amajiki's face as he leaves. Chapter 11. Back in the viewing room, Izuku and his parents continue to observe the ongoing exams. Unfortunately, the next few pairs meet with failure, each for different reasons. The second pair, lacking sufficient self-restraint, ends up killing 3 villains, which promptly leads to their disqualification. The subsequent duo starts off promisingly. They manage to safely rescue 3 hostages, quite like Togata and Amajiki. But, similar to the previous scenario, one of the hostages dies as a villain bot detects their presence. This time, Izuku is ready for the fake blood, so he's not triggered again. Having Salazar curled around his neck also helps. The duo doesn't manage to recover. The fourth pair stumbles due to a big error. One of the students is carrying a hostage and, when confronted by a villain bot, tries to use their quirk for offense. The recoil from the power causes them to lose their grip on the hostage. The fall's impact, coupled with pre-existing injuries on the hostage, is enough to warrant their death. The group's point tally can't recover from this unfortunate turn of events. In the fifth pairing, things go relatively well until they reach the last hostage. They can't find the tracker on the hostage and eventually are overwhelmed by the villains, resulting in failure. As a result, Izuku has to mend 3 broken bones and address a concussion within this group. The sixth pair's disqualification comes swiftly due to mishandling a hostage and using excessive force. Their count of 3 villain deaths results in their elimination, much to the evident frustration of Izuku's dad, who grumbles about having taught them better. The seventh group delivers a better performance and would have succeeded if not for a minor mistake towards the end that leads to the death of the final hostage. Lastly, the last pair steps up, featuring the blue-haired girl, Haru Nijire, and another boy who had previously regarded Izuku with disdain during introductions, Hanazaki Ran. The latter emanates arrogance and clearly disregards Haru. You've been complaining about this boy for a while now, Sho, Papa remarks. Why haven't you expelled him yet? Because his potential isn't 0. Dad responds with a sigh. If we consider Quirk's strength and control, he might as well be the strongest in my class. He earned his recommendation for a good reason. The issue lies in his arrogance. Let's hope this experience guides him in the right direction. Izuku says thoughtfully. What's his quirk, by the way? Bloom. Dad explains casually. Basically, he can sprout copies of his limbs on any surface he sees, and then control those limbs as if they're his own. Wow, that's pretty cool. Izuku responds, clearly impressed. And he got into UA through the recommendation exam? Is he a legacy kid? Yep. Dad confirms with a nod. Comes from a hero family. But you know how that ends in most cases. The kid has an ego more inflated than a pufferfish when a shark is close. Yeah, I get it. Let's just see how he handles this test. Izuku says, turning his focus back to the screen. Hada-san seems to be handling things well, despite her partner being so difficult. She's great. Papa nods in agreement. Haru has this incredible enthusiasm that carries her through tough situations. She's great at rescue too. She's got this approachable aura about her that calms down victims. Dad chimes in. Izuku watches as Haru and Hanazaki split up to search for the hostages. I mean, their strategy isn't bad, Izuku comments. But I wonder if Hanazaki's quirk works based on his field of view. Couldn't he create limbs with eyes on them? That way, he could cover a much larger area and search without even moving. Both Dad and Papa exchange a surprised look. We never thought of that, little listener, Papa admits, clearly impressed by Izuku's analytical thinking. And I bet he didn't either. As they watch the screen, Haru smoothly moves through the streets, ensuring no stone is left unturned in her search for hostages. Hanazaki, on the other hand, seems to be having a bit more trouble. He keeps glancing around, his brow furrowed in concentration. But he isn't employing the tactic Izuku suggested. He might not have a good sense of strategy, Papa observes. Should have gone with Haru, Dad adds. She already got 2 hostages out. Eventually, Hanazaki manages to get 1 hostage out. He and Haru find the next practically at the same time. Hanazaki freezes as Haru quickly catches up to him. The screen displays a wide view of the area, and it's clear that they've spotted something. There's the next hostage, Izuku points out. The screen shows a cluster of villains guarding the hostage, along with even more concealed nearby. What are they going to? His sentence is abruptly cut off as Hanazaki charges in recklessly, ignoring Haru's attempts to call him back. Are you sure he's a legacy kid? That's what I said about his ego. Dad replies as Hanazaki tries to use his quirk to restrain the villains. However, he's quickly overwhelmed by their numbers, and the hostage falls victim to their assault before Haru can intervene. That's going to cost them a lot of points. Izuku's eyes widen in shock as one of the villain bots snaps the limbs that Hanazaki had manifested, causing the boy to cry out in agony. It seems like the limbs he creates are directly linked to his real limbs. Izuku observes, his gaze fixed on the open fracture in Hanazaki's left arm. Should we stop the exam? Papa inquires, glancing toward Nedzu for guidance. Well, what does our doctor think? Nedzu redirects the question to Izuku. Startled by the attention, Izuku hesitates for a moment before turning his focus back to the screen. It's an open fracture, but he's not bleeding too much, Izuku explains. If they manage to immobilize it properly, he can continue for a bit longer. We should monitor it closely, and if he aggravates the wound, we need to stop the exam. You heard the expert, Nedzu says with a grin. Not just yet. Haru manages to pull Hanazaki away from the villains. Haru is holding her ground quite impressively, given the circumstances. It's quite a feat to do well when your partner is actively working against you, Papa comments with a nod. The duo successfully evades their pursuers, finally losing them. Haru proceeds to immobilize Hanazaki's arms, trying to mitigate the damage done. She does a great job, especially considering that Hanazaki is not cooperating. That's pretty impressive, especially for an impromptu job, Izuku notes, his gaze fixed on the screen. I mean, she managed to immobilize his arm quite effectively without causing further harm. Agreed, Papa adds. Considering the circumstances, that's commendable. Do you think we could award her a few extra points for that? Izuku turns his attention to Principal Nedzu. Haru's actions might have saved their exam. Nedzu strokes his chin thoughtfully. You make a valid point. How about we give Haru-chan an additional 10 points for her quick thinking and skillful handling of the situation? Sounds fair. She definitely deserves recognition for that. Izuku nods in agreement. The rest of the exam unfolds with Hanazaki being largely ineffective due to his incapacitated arms. Izuku can't help but feel disappointed as he watches. He knows there's still potential for Hanazaki to contribute with his quirk, even if his arms are rendered useless. Fortunately, Haru is more than ready to pick up the slack. She swiftly takes charge, finding the final hostage and the tracker with remarkable efficiency. Hiding the tracker, she skillfully navigates her way to safety, successfully rescuing the hostage. As the exam concludes, Principal Nedzu signals the end of the simulation. Haru managed to gather just enough points to pass. Dad comments, Hanazaki failed. Hopefully this will teach him to think before acting. No surprise there, Izuku responds. I'll head over to heal them now. At least Haru seems to have come out of this without a scratch. With Haru and Hanazaki arriving just a minute after Izuku enters the medical tent, He wastes no time in taking charge. Sit down, Izuku instructs, pointing to one of the beds. Hanazaki complies, his face twisted in a grimace of pain. Man, this hurts like hell, he exclaims, his voice tinged with both frustration and agony. Izuku gives him a pointed look. Yeah, well, that's what reckless behavior gets you, he retorts as Salazar begins to examine Hanazaki's injuries. You should consider yourself lucky that broken arms are the extent of your injuries. Your job is just healing me, Hanazaki grumbles in response. Izuku's patience wears thin. And your job was to handle yourself properly during the exam, yet here we are, he retorts, annoyance lacing his voice. Now stop squirming so I can set the bone back in place. Can't you just heal him without doing that? Hadu asks, her voice laced with genuine curiosity. Nope, Izuku shakes his head. I need to set the bone in place first. Otherwise, it could heal improperly, causing more problems down the line. Just get it over with, Hanazaki grumbles. This hurts. Izuku's tone takes on a serious edge. It's going to hurt even more. With that, he removes the binds from Hanazaki's right arm and tightly grips the broken bone. Brace yourself. This won't be pleasant. Before Hanazaki can utter another word, Izuku moves swiftly, snapping the bone back into its proper position. Hanazaki's agonized scream fills the tent, tears welling up in his eyes. Acting quickly, Izuku places his hand over the injury and starts healing. He repeats the process for the other arm, setting the bone and then healing the fractures. It's a trivial job. Wow, that's amazing, Hadu says. Once his tears have subsided, Hanazaki abruptly gets up and exits the tent without so much as a word of gratitude toward Izuku. Izuku sighs, shaking his head in disbelief at the other boy's rudeness. Turning his attention back to Hadu, he's relieved to see that she's unharmed. This guy is so rude to everyone, Hadu remarks before her attention shifts to Izuku. A bright smile graces her face. You're absolutely adorable, you know that? And so mature too. Are you Aizawa-sensei's son? How does your quirk work? You didn't even look tired after using it. Can I pet your hair? It looks so fluffy. Your snake is quite cute as well. I'm really fond of your earrings. Izuku blinks in mild surprise, his cheeks reddening slightly at the barrage of questions and compliments coming his way. Is this how people feel when Izuku starts rambling about quirks and analyses? He can't help but find the situation somewhat amusing now that he's on the receiving end of such enthusiastic curiosity. It's like being caught in a whirlwind of inquiries. He chuckles nervously, feeling a bit overwhelmed. Yes, Aizawa is my dad. Well, adoptive dad. He replies. My quirk. Well, the explanation is long. Sure, you can pet my hair if you want to. Thanks, Salazar is my friend. And these earrings were a gift from my dad's. They are actually trackers. I heard that healers are targeted a lot, Hadu says, her smile softening a little as she starts running her hand through Izuku's hair. It's really fluffy. Can you explain your quirk? Air. Sure. Izuku takes a deep breath, leaning on her touch. Feels very nice. Well, I call my quirk Snake of Asclepius. Salazar pops from his arm and curls around his neck. This is Salazar. He's basically my quirk. Hello, Salazar greets, waving his tail. He said hello. Izuku translates. Hello, can I pet you? Hadu asks, and Salazar nods his consent. As Hadu gently pets Salazar, Izuku begins to explain his quirk. My quirk allows me to heal injuries and ailments by channeling energy through Salazar. When he's in my body, he looks like a black tattoo, and as long as the tattoo is in my right hand, I can heal anyone by touching them. Salazar himself can detect and identify injuries just by looking at them. Hadu listens with rapt attention, her eyes sparkling with interest. That's amazing. How does your quirk heal? She asks. 2 ways, Izuku replies with a smile. Mending wounds and bones is rather easy. Salazar simply siphons the energy into your body, accelerating the natural healing process. Since it uses his own energy, you won't feel tired because of it. He explains as simply as he can. But there's a second aspect. Worse injuries, the ones that would usually leave scars, can also be healed. But that depends on my own medical knowledge and concentration. So, as long as you know how the wound would need to be healed, you can heal any wound? Haru asks, her eyes widening in fascination. As long as the person is alive. Izuku replies, no quirk can bring back the dead, after all. That's amazing, Haru says in awe. But you don't seem any more tired after healing Hanazaki either. Salazar has his own energy reserves. Izuku explains. He can replenish it through rest, or I can use my left hand. He raises his left hand in the air for emphasis. I just need to touch someone with 5 fingers, and I can leech energy from them. Quite useful, I should add. Both to keep our energy, and to put the more hard-headed patients to sleep. As Haru continues to pet Salazar, a thoughtful expression crosses her face. Her fingers start to gently card through Izuku's hair as well, and he can't help but find the sensation oddly comforting. Your quirk sounds incredible, and Salazar is adorable, she says with a grin. I'm sure you're going to be a great healer. Well, you already are. Thank you. Izuku beams at her, his cheeks slightly pink. This means a lot to me. Oh, before I forget. He quickly grabs his notebook and sheepishly presents it to her. Can I have your autograph? Haru's smile softens at his request, and she takes the notebook, signing her name with a flourish. Of course, she replies warmly. You'll be the first one to get an autograph from Nijire-chan. Izuku's grin widens as he takes the notebook back, hugging it to his chest and bouncing up and down in excitement. Thank you so much, he says earnestly. I'm sure Nijire-chan will be a great hero. Then he glances at the clock. Oh, it's getting late. You should go back so Aizawa can wrap things up. Oh, you're right, Haru replies, seeing the time as well. Won't you come too? Nah. I have to make a report and catalog all the wounds I healed today. Izuku replies as he walks to his desk. It's an important part of being a healer. I see. Haru nods at him. Then I'll get out of your hair, Midoriya-kun. She waves excitedly at him. I hope to see you again sometime. Izuku waves back, a contented expression on his face, as Haru leaves the tent with a skip in her step. Chapter 12. Hizashi can't help but feel exhausted as he sits at his desk in the teacher's lounge, surrounded by paperwork. The final exams had taken a lot out of him, even though he hadn't been directly involved in the testing. He can't wait for the day to end so he can go home and relax with his family. He can already picture the perfect night. He'll cook katsudon for Izuku as a treat for how well he did today. Then, after they had a family dinner, they'd all cuddle together on the couch and have a movie night. Shoyuta in the middle of the couch with Izuku and Hitoshi on his left and Hizashi on the right. Persephone on Hitoshi's lap, and Salazar wrapped around Izuku's neck while the kid lies sprawled across them all, using Hizashi's lap as a pillow. Today is Izuku's turn to choose the movie. Hizashi can already see his son choosing some medical drama just to poke fun at all the medical inaccuracies. This sounds like the perfect afternoon after such a long day. A call of his name snaps Hizashi out of his daydreaming. He turns around and sees his husband at his desk, nursing another cup of coffee as he works through his own paperwork. Shoyuta raises an eyebrow at him, and Hizashi sighs and waves him off before turning back to his own paperwork. He needs to finish this before he can go home to his perfect family night. Their son is sprawled out on the nearby sofa, engrossed in reviewing the reports he had written. That's just like Izuku. He takes his work as a healer very seriously and always reviews all his reports at least thrice to make sure he didn't make any mistakes. Hizashi can't help but feel an overwhelming sense of pride at how well Izuku had performed during the exams. Truth be told, Hizashi had been worried about having his son serve as the healer for the final exams. Not because he doubted Izuku's abilities. Izuku has been healing pro heroes for years already. A bunch of high schoolers are no problem for him. But because he worried that the students wouldn't respect him after learning how young he was. However, those worries quickly proved to be unnecessary. Izuku's presence when he's in his healer mode commands respect and attention. Hizashi was very soon reminded just why Izuku is Inko's son. Just like his mom had, Izuku has a completely no-nonsense approach with his patients. commanding respect and compliance from each one of them. The only other person Hizashi knows who can make even the most stubborn hero or hero student comply like that is Recovery Girl herself. It's no wonder that Izuku is already one of the most respected healers in Japan. Hizashi shudders at the thought of the two healers meeting. It's only a matter of time before they do, especially if Izuku decides to pursue a career as a field healer. He'll need to intern under an experienced healer, and Chio would undoubtedly be the best choice. As Hizashi diligently works through his paperwork, he catches a glimpse of Izuku from the corner of his eye. Izuku yawns, straightens his papers, and then sets them aside before stretching and rubbing his tired eyes. Hizashi can't help but feel a sense of pride in his son's work ethic. Izuku is a true workaholic like Shoyuta, but he's also wise enough to understand the importance of taking breaks and getting proper rest. Izuku pushes the papers aside and rises to get a glass of water. As he passes by Majima and ectoplasms, when will the man tell them his name? Desks, he pauses to listen to their conversation. Hizashi hasn't been paying much attention to them, but Izuku's interest picks up his interest. They seem to be talking about ectoplasm's prosthetic legs. Maybe if we tried using a lighter material, Majima suggests. But I can't afford to sacrifice mobility, ectoplasm counters. Salazar emerges from Izuku's arm, glances at the hero's legs, and then coils around Izuku's neck. He whispers something to his human, causing Izuku to pause and contemplate. Well, it could work, Izuku mutters, mostly to himself. He wiggles his fingers on his left hand for a moment. We've never attempted something like that, but maybe… He furrows his brow at his hand, seemingly lost in thought. Izuku, Hizashi calls out to his son. Startled from his reverie, Izuku smiles at Hizashi. Oh, sorry, Papa. Spaced out for a moment, he explains. Hizashi's curiosity is piqued. Want to share what you're thinking? He asks gently. Izuku considers for a moment, then explains. Oh, just something Salazar mentioned. Remember what happened with Munch, right? He frowns at the mention of the villain's name before lifting his left hand. Yes, I remember. Hizashi nods, also frowning as he remembers the villain. Well, we know that I can regrow my own fingers, Izuku begins, and we have yet to find a wound I cannot heal. So, we were thinking. Thinking what, sweetheart? Hizashi prompts gently. Well, would Salazar and I be able to regrow other people's limbs? Izuku wonders aloud. It's theoretically possible, right? Everyone in the room has stopped their work to pay attention to Izuku as he starts mumbling about the logistics of regrowing a limb. He seems deeply lost in thought, his mind racing with the possibilities. Well, I can't say it wouldn't be great to have my own legs back, Ectoplasm says, breaking the silence. But how would that work? Izuku turns back to the hero, blushing slightly as he realizes that everyone has heard him. Well, I can test it right now, Izuku says, smiling warmly. You remember how my quirk works, right? I've healed you before. Ectoplasm nods, a hint of curiosity in his expression. He reaches down to start taking off his prosthetic leg. Izuku smiles, and Salazar retreats back into his arm. Everyone watches with bated breath as Izuku kneels down and rests his right hand on Ectoplasm's left knee. Immediately, a soft glow starts to emit from his hands, and Izuku sticks out his tongue in concentration. He continues this for about 30 seconds, and nothing seems to happen. Then he stops, sighs, and steps back, a small bead of sweat forming on his forehead. It's possible, Izuku says, panting slightly, but we don't have enough energy for something like that. Can you explain what you mean, Izuku? Shoyuta leans forward, his interest piqued. Izuku turns to his dad, putting a hand on his chin as he thinks. Well, my quirk is pretty similar to Recovery Girl's quirk for the most part. I channel Salazar's energy through your body to speed up your natural healing. Your body knows how it's supposed to heal for the most part, Izuku explains, tapping the side of his head. But things that you wouldn't be able to heal normally, like scars for example, require my own effort. That's why it's so easy to mend wounds. But on the other hand, humans can't regenerate lost limbs. Shoyuta finishes the thought. So to do that, you have to do all the work yourself. Exactly. Izuku nods. I'd have to recreate his bones, muscles, tendons, ligaments, blood vessels, nerves, and skin. This would take at least an hour or two of continuous work. And just for one leg. The problem is, I can't use my quirk for more than a few minutes at a time, even with full energy. Does that mean it's impossible? Hisashi asks. I don't see a way of raising your energy reserves so much, even with training. I don't even know what exactly makes our energy reserves grow. Izuku replies with a hint of frustration. I mean, I've been using my quirk continuously since I was 5, but Salazar's energy reserves didn't grow that much ever since. From full energy, we can use our quirk continuously for about 2.5 minutes. That's just 30 seconds more than when I was 4. Well, maybe it's not necessary to raise your reserve. Majima interjects, his brow furrowed in thought. Your left hand can sap energy, right? What happens to that energy? Oh, it goes straight to Salazar. Izuku explains. Though I can do it even if he's already full. I don't know what happens to the energy in this case. It's probably just dissipated into the air or something. In this case, maybe a donor could help you, Hisashi suggests, like an external battery or a power outlet. While you perform the procedure with your right hand, you would continuously absorb energy with your left. I've been on the receiving end of his left hand enough times to know that he can control pretty well how much he saps, Shoyuta says with a hint of amusement. By Asclepius. Izuku's eyes widen in realization. How come we never thought of this possibility, Salazar? He exclaims. If this works, it'll be a groundbreaking discovery about our quirk. He turns his big, hopeful eyes to Shoyuta and Hisashi. Can we test it, Dad? Papa. Shoyuta and Hisashi exchange a glance, their silent communication lasting for several seconds. Could work, but it could also be dangerous. They don't know how he and Salazar would react to having their energy being constantly depleted and replenished in quick succession like that.